Welcome to another episode of OG55 Live. In this live show, we are going to be talking about Bob Iger's visit to Disneyland. The king has returned. We're talking about Splash Mountain closing. We're going to be talking about Indy Refurb. We have a lot to discuss. We're also going to talk about anything that you guys and gals want to bring up. So your comments, your questions, we will be taking those as well up next on OG55 Live. Welcome to another episode of OG55 Live. Like I said, we are going to be discussing a host of things, especially that Bob Iger visit to Disneyland. That was very interesting. There's a lot going on with that. Kyle Bauscher in the chat. What's up, Kyle? What's up, Kyle? But before we dive into our festivities, I want to introduce my fantastic panel, my brothers, my compadres. This channel would not be the same without these two fellas. I love them both. We'll start with Mr. Vash Guy, the DEA, the pilot. You were piloting the second half of the video, the last show we did.
I was, yeah.
Right? Producer Dre, the man who holds many titles, wears many hats. Welcome back, brother.
Thank you. I do appreciate the introduction for sure. Well, I mean, I guess we can dispense with the pleasantries real fast. If you guys want to follow me, you can go ahead and do so right down there at VashSky. Go ahead and type that in, as Christine Wastelands McCarthy would say, for all the robust discussion, right? And if you want to see me, well, it's going to be on the channel you're watching right now at OrangeGrove55, where you can find shows like Citrus Corner from our brother from another mother, George, right? Orange Nerd and the classic OG55 with our buddy OG, and you can find my show there as well at Freshly Squeezed, your source for juicy news and info, squeezed fresh right from the Grove. And because we're doing a live show, well, you got to play it, right?
We'll do it live. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Thing sucks.
And one more thing I wanted to go ahead and kick out the show with. George, I think you would join me in saying this. I want to dedicate this show to the one, the only, Walt Disney. It is his, 121st
Yep.
birthday, right? We wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for this great man 121 years ago on December 5th, 1901. So I just want to go ahead and put that out there. I'll share a quote real fast. Quote, give the public everything you can give them. Keep the place as clean as you can keep it, and keep it friendly. So hopefully those are inspirational words. But without further ado, George, go ahead and tell the fine folks where they can find you, sir.
Absolutely. You can find me on my YouTube channel, Disney Family Man 23. If you want to interact with me on Twitter at Disney George. You could also catch me pretty soon, folks, I promise you, on the new podcast, A Walk with Walt, which is available on Apple, Stitcher, iTunes, all that good stuff. And I'm going to do a quick plug real quick for my wife. She's starting up her quilting business titled Quilts from My Heart. And I just brought a little showcasing a frozen blanket that she had made for our niece as a Christmas gift. We're in the process of trying to get licensing with Disney and trying to partner with them. But if you want anything sewn, stitched, made, she could pretty much do anything. So Quilts from My Heart, if you want to check her out, you could find my wife, Jessica Falcione, on Facebook.
Perfect. Well, thank you both. And yes, today is the birthday of the one and only Walt Disney. This man, just real quick, he changed the world. He changed the world in profound ways. I mean, he died, 50 plus years ago, and we're still feeling the effects of what he started, what he created to this day. In fact, none of us would be here. I would not have met these wonderful gentlemen, everyone in the chat, if not for this man. He changed the world. He has brought so much happiness to millions and millions of people. Walt Disney, we miss you. There will never, ever be another Walt Disney, and a truly incredible human being.
And I concur with that. I really do. I think, you get certain people that come in this world who are extremely gifted. And I think there's no exception when it comes to Walt Disney. Whether you watch his movies, music, television, theme parks, whether you don't know him as the person, you know the name of Disney. And
Yeah.
I think in today's time that a lot of people, in a sense, kind of bash him, but yet at the same time they love his product. So it's like, let's not forget that yes, it is a company. It is a product, it is a name brand, but it's also first and foremost a person. And we should respect that for what he has brought to us as in the Disney community and the world. Because at some point or another, we all have a little bit of that Disney-fied love in us. So I think, that's a tremendous gift that he has bestowed upon us.
Well, Dre,
Facts.
there you go, the hard facts. Dre, you actually said something in a show a long time ago. I don't even remember what show it was, but it was probably at least over a year ago. And we were talking about Walt. And what you said really stuck with me. And to kind of paraphrase, you said Walt was really something special. He started off in the 20s like, hey, I'm gonna make the first sound cartoon. And right before he passed away, he's like, hey, I'm building a community of tomorrow. Right.
Wow.
Like the amount of like just incredible things in just that span of time, those 40 years is absolutely amazing. He went from that little cartoon to wanting to build a community of tomorrow. This man was always moving forward, such a visionary. My God, we will never have another Walt Disney, but today is, or would have been, his 121st birthday. So cheers to Walt.
Absolutely.
Cheers to Walt.
100%.
So, let's get this party started, fellas.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to all who come to this happy place,
welcome to Orange Grove 55.
All right. So now
sure.
we're going to talk about some Bob Iger. Man, Bob Iger. It's only been like 2 weeks since he came back. He's already making a lot of waves. And I want to say hi to everyone in the chat. Showcase, Love Low, Kyle, Nathaniel Carter, Theme Park Casual. Everybody, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Now, Dre, you have a video. I'm going to share this
Yes,
of some of this.
I do. Somebody was in the park recently, and
Yes, you are.
or a couple of people were in the parks recently, and we'll get to the implications of all of those connections. This photo comes to us by way of Ashley Mathau. So, we talk about Walk with Walt. Well, it's Walk with Bob Iger today on on the Walk with Walt podcast crew right there. Here we go. They were in the parks, and as you can see, this comes to us from good dear friend Mr. Daps over there on YouTube and also on his Twitter. He was able to get some video of this kind of walkthrough here. Very interesting, by the way. It's right in front of Walt's old apartment right there, right?
Wow.
Right there on in the town square on Main Street, USA at Disneyland in California, and you can see the crowd goes wild.
Turn the sound on for them, because this is actually pretty crazy.
Sure.
Like, this is crazy.
You think they were meeting Walt himself?
You would think, right?
Yeah, they're going pretty insane here, which
And
guess-
Damaro's right by his side.
I can hear people saying, "Welcome home, Bob." Oh, man.
Get rid of Lightning Lane. Yeah, so
The daddies of Disneyland right there.
the daddies of Disneyland, and then when he's walking away,
Oh, yeah, there it is.
my goodness. Now, one thing that's not really been talked about in this whole kind of thing is, you see that gal in the kind of lighter jacket
Oh, yeah, go ahead and
Trailing
pause
them.
that.
right
Yeah.
there? You see that gal right there?
Yep.
Now,
on
maybe the Disney connoisseurs in the audience right there weren't necessarily familiar with her, but right there, that is Bob Iger's wife, Willow Bay, right? Trailing alongside both Diamaro and Josh, who were, I'm sorry, Diamaro and Iger, who were connected at the hip, by the way, during this whole thing.
Whole thing. They really hit it off. You could tell the chemistry with these two men. you could tell they really dug each other's company. They were like in their own little bubble. I mean, I saw them like this walking through Avengers Campus. It was the same thing. They were like, it's just in deep conversation, which actually might bode well for our theme parks that we love. And I'll get to that in a second, but go ahead and show them this. See, again, they're just completely in their own world, just talking and talking, man.
In their own world. And, fellas, find yourself a gal who looks at you like Bob Iger looks at Josh D'Amaro with his wife next door. I mean, this is I thought this was really, really amusing, really, really funny.
Now, this actually, this actually bodes well, I think, for our theme parks, because if you have, look, Bob Iger obviously took a liking to D'Amaro quite a bit, you can tell. And I think that look, if he likes D'Amaro and he puts a lot of trust into him, and look, maybe that'll bode well for what we get out here at Disneyland or even at Walt Disney World. I don't know. I think it's a positive thing that when the CEO and the parks chief has a really good relationship like that. Now, to be fair, it seemed like him and Chapek also had a really good relationship, but it didn't seem like the bromance we're seeing in front of us right now.
No, we were all kind of speculating on whether or not Josh D'Amaro was actually whether he would actually remain. We saw Kareem Daniel frog march within 24 hours of the original email going out that Bob Iger has returned, right? So we were like, well, what does this mean for the other people that are close to that were close to Chapek, including D'Amaro himself? And it looks like, well, we kind of got a little bit of that hint at the town hall, right? When he said, well, you know what? I'm going to talk to Josh about some of this stuff, and we'll go ahead and find out here what we're going to do. Well, now we have seen that bromance actually take hold at the Disney parks, let's say, officially here at both in Avengers Campus, interestingly enough, and in Town Square at Disneyland. Now, this appears to be Kevin Feige. I think him. He looked a little different, so I wasn't quite sure, but I believe this is Kevin Feige, and they're talking at Avengers Campus of all places. So this is really, really fascinating how this is all kind of taking place here. There's some really big implications here for sure. OG, George, what do you feel about all this?
I mean, yeah, it doesn't really surprise me. I mean, especially of how D'Amaro kind of took over that likableness in the theme parks with the fans and the community and the people. So now that he actually has Iger, they both can kind of join together and join forces. And I think they're both going to be in the parks a lot. And I think that this was kind of a test run to really see how well the fans would react to them. Because if you really think of it, Iger had addressed the cast members through an email memo, and then also in the meeting up at the studios, but he never really addressed the fans and the Disney community. So I think this was the start of it to really see how people would react. And I think he got a very warm, welcoming reception to the people. And I think, honestly, based off of everything in the last couple of weeks, like, I'm starting to see a lot of movement, particularly in I would even say the studios and the parks. I mean, they released how many trailers within one day, and then they started making announcements of certain for refurbs, which we're going to talk about later on.
Right,
a certain attraction that we were wondering, is it going to go down? Is it going to stay? We're going to talk about that also. Yes. So I mean, a lot of stuff. I'm starting to see a pulse kind of go through the parks than just talking about it.
And that's important, George. Also, no matter what anyone thinks of Bob Iger, like, believe me, I have my criticisms. I stand by it, whether he's back or not. He overpaid for Fox. He went all in on China. I don't necessarily agree with that. He made mistakes. But whatever we can really surmise about Bob Iger, there's one thing that we can't really argue about. The morale almost instantly improved from in the fan circles, as well as within the company with the cast members the day he came back. And you're seeing that the energy of the crowd and the people is palpable. is absolutely palpable. And that does matter. That does make a difference, And look, I mean, I don't know how he's gonna be going forward, actually managing and leading the Walt Disney Company during this really tough time period. But the energy's there, and I think that's a big part of it. I don't know. What do you think, Dre?
It's definitely a big part of it for sure. I mean, there definitely seems to be an overall improvement regarding morale for a lot of people within the Walt Disney Company, especially frontline cast members for sure, who felt like they had been forgotten. So there's no question that there is that effect, but. I find this kind of all very interesting, and there was a recent Variety article that actually just came out talking about this, where it was like, what is it? Bob Iger's big Disney reorganization aims to fix problems he helped sow, right? A lot of what we're seeing in the parks was not a result of Chapek. It was a result of the guy there on your left there. Josh Giamaro himself, right? And a lot of how the Disney company has been run over the last couple of years, while Chapek did have great effect, he was largely following in his predecessors, or maybe even successors, footsteps. And so I kind of find it odd how we're all kind of like, oh yeah, Bob Iger's back and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, but that doesn't really necessarily solve the problems that Disney's facing. No. It's going to be interesting to see how he actually overcomes that. I want to go ahead and read you a little bit of this Variety article here. It was Iger who engineered Disney's streaming strategy in the first place and made no secret of the fact that it would lead to billions of dollars in losses. And though the media industry arguably should have foreseen that Netflix's constant growth model for streaming was unsustainable and that a market correction would come at some point, Chapek doesn't deserve sole blame for the industry-wide error. The fact is, no one has yet figured out how to organize Disney's streaming operations and position the company for the future. No easy task, to be sure, but the board's decision to bring Bob Iger back can't help but look a bit desperate, like an implicit admission that no one really knows how to navigate the current media landscape. Iger will now get a second crack at it, but the fact that his first attempt helped lead the company here should not be ignored. If the board's confidence in him is not misplaced exactly, it at least should be tempered with a healthy dose of skepticism.
And here's one thing I have to say about that. They're not wrong. The facts in that piece, what you just read, are not wrong. And like what you said, a lot of what we're dealing with right now is it really kind of the seeds were planted when Bob Iger was CEO before. But here's the thing that's kind of snake oil, kind of gross to me.
Yeah.
For 2+ years, we've seen trades like the Hollywood Reporter and Variety, like the one you just read, talk about, oh man, they were evangelizing Bob Iger. Right. He was like the god of all gods. Oh, we want Bob Iger back. We want Bob Iger back. There was never a mention in any of those hit pieces when Chapek was CEO about Bob Iger creating the mess. It was always focused on Chapek. Now they got what they wanted. Now Bob Iger is back. And now what's going on is, oh, well, poor Chapek. He didn't deserve all the blame. It was Bob Iger too. What that says to me, regardless of whether the facts are true or not, what that says to me, these trades like the Variety and what have you, look, they were getting all kinds of clicks when Bob Chapek was CEO. These anti-Disney articles were big business for them. So that whole spigot, that whole gravy train stopped when Chapek left. So they have to pivot now to, oh, well, it was Iger because Iger, and you need those clicks. That's what I'm saying. So,
and that's honestly just like basic politics. It's like no matter which side you're on, whether you're on the left, the right, the middle, we're up, down, crisscross, it's like no matter what, whoever is now in the spotlight, you're going to have all the negatives tied in with the positives when the negatives weren't there before until they're actually in the spotlight.
Well, it's sort of like a George, to connect it a little bit more there, it's sort of like a 45th president of the United States going. He actually said as he's walking away, like, hey, you're going to miss me when I'm gone. Sure enough. Who do we hear about? Well, gets the clicks, right? And yes, and Chapek is out of the picture. I think you're right, OG. I mean, they have to kind of pivot to Iger in order to keep the drama train going for all of these, trades and so forth. And look, listen, I mean, we were calling it out. We were calling it out on here before a lot of these trades are catching up with these stories or whatever. That Iger, unfortunately, has been a large part of the problem that we're seeing at the actual Mouse House. Not in terms of just its kind of overall vision, but also the content it produces, right? So, Strange World is on track to lose a whole lot of money. And I remember back in the day, one of the worst financial flops in the history of the company, but also the industry at large, was when Mars Needs Moms actually came out.
Oh, right? God, I remember that.
You remember that, right?
I remember that.
So to give some perspective for our lovely Chet, who might not be familiar, Disney went all in on Robert Zemeckis and his idea and his vision of like this kind of mocap technology for animated films, and it could never get past the the uncanny valley stage of the concept. But he did have some success in Beowulf and some others that utilized this technology, but Disney really bankrolled a lot of it. And so when this animated film comes out in the form of Mars Needs Moms, well, they spend, I believe, well north of $140 million, and it only grows $39 million at the box office. Now, that was a huge hit to the company's bottom line, something that the entire company had to absorb. And I remember that affecting the parks as well. Well, now history repeats itself, not once, but twice, in the form of Lightyear, but also Strange World, both of them being Bob Iger chosen products when he was the head of creative under Chapek for those first 2 years. So,
and that's also including John Carter as well.
John Carter. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and this stuff is kind of a little bit cyclical though too. They do ebb and flow. Like I was talking actually to our buddy Doc in the DMs earlier today, where it's like. Disney Animation has been making feature films since the 1930s. And we've seen this go up and down. Like sometimes they're on a winning streak and they're just kicking major butt, and then they dip down. There was a time right before Michael Eisner came in that these Disney movies were flopping at the box office. They were being beaten out by like Care Bears movies and things like that. Okay, we're kind of going through a little bit of a slump right now again. But it's not entirely unfamiliar territory, right? I mean, anytime you have a studio this old, you're going to have ebbs and flows of success and failures. And again, look, right now we're in the downward trend, but eventually, maybe in a few years, we'll come back out of it and we'll be on top again. It's just it happens. And that's why I'm sorry.
These films are they're so floppy. I mean, they need a little blue pill or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh man, here we go.
Yes, folks, we only have high-class stuff on this show.
No, but like I don't disagree with you, OG, for sure. Yeah. But is Bob Iger, is he capable of kind of righting that ship when he's directly responsible for some of these flops? And by the way, Universal Comcast, they were talking about it today in terms of animated films, right? This is brought to us by Walt Disney World News Today. And I believe, I want to get where this quote actually came from. This is Shell. So Jeff Shell, NBC Universal CEO, says this, quote, "Go back 10 years and say, is Disney ever going to be challenged in animation? I think most people, including me, would say impossible. They are the dominant player in animation. Their position is not going to be challenged ever. I honestly think that not only are we challenging Disney in animation, but I would take our animation business over theirs." Now, the significant thing about that, well, hang on, OG, hang on. I know you poo-poo this, but hey, listen, Despicable Me made a buttload at the box office, and it was made at a fraction of the cost that Lightyear or A Strange World was actually made for. I believe the budget was anywhere between like $85 million or so, the production budget for that movie, and it grossed over at least over $600 million. That's a nice bit of cash right there. We were just talking about also too Super Nintendo, the Super Mario Brothers movie that was actually coming out there, and how that actually looks really, really good, and it's got a lot of people excited. I'm just saying, you have, people are smelling this kind of blood in the water here, not just from Comcast, but also Zazzy over there at Warner Brothers Discovery.
But here's the thing with Jeff Shell. Okay. He says, if you go back 10 years, would Disney ever be challenged? Oh, it would be impossible. Well, if Jeff Shell actually understood a little bit of history, he would know that Disney has been challenged many times in its history, as recently as when DreamWorks came up in the mid 90s. So the guy who's speaking for Universal Animation doesn't even know pretty basic, like modern history. I also have to say that, yes, these Minion movies make a lot of money. And they cost a fraction of what they.
And a lot of merch money, OG. A lot of merch.
A lot of merch. I mean, quality items like the fart gun. I mean, come on. I mean, premium product.
Yes.
And
listen. And my son has that too.
You see? See, OG? See what happened there? You see? George is a buyer there. No, I mean, that merchandise revenue stream has grossed billions and billions of dollars. At least $6 billion from what I understand just by itself, if not more.
I'm sorry. But I think that's Disney's problem. I think they're really leaning more towards these type of films that are more for DreamWorks and Illuminations. I really think that they need to kind of go back to their roots, so to speak, and go with the fairy tale and musicals, because I really feel that that's even how, as OG was saying about, goes down, goes up, goes down, goes up. But if you really look at the pattern, where does it end up dipping? It's when they kind of segue off of the fairy tales.
Right. Yeah. Every resurgence in Disney animation has come from that kind of fairy tale, whether it be Tangled in 2010, whether it be The Little Mermaid in 89, Cinderella, I think in 51. Every resurgence of Disney animation, rebirth, so to speak, has been from those fairy tales. And I'm not saying that every movie has to be a fairy tale, but we have two studios for a reason. We have Disney Animation that does more storybook stuff, and we have Pixar who can do more modern kind of stories. And really, for the longest time now, these studios have been kind of melded into one studio. And when you get to that point, what's the point of having two studios then? If they're both going to make the same product, why have Disney Animation and Pixar? They might as well just be one.
A lot of people, a lot of industry insiders have said that, by the way. It's like, if these films aren't distinct from one another, why even have, because you have two separate payrolls, you have two separate HR departments, and you have, you can consolidate that and actually get the operation down just a tad. And that's an interesting observation. It just shows you that, these kind of studios have lost a little bit of their luster and their identity. And the idea that, an executive at a competing company would actually say, oh, yeah, I think we can challenge their game, and I think our game is actually better. That is really profound. I was just saying, OG, I think a couple of shows ago, that, how Michael Eisner couldn't really understand that, right? He had kind of an indisputable dominance in a franchise market, which was Disney animated films, right? Nobody could even come close to those animated films. And Loyalty Legends, you're right. Anastasia, I believe, I think like Balto, right? That was done by another animation studio. I if I'm not mistaken, right? DreamWorks had obviously their foray into animation. We were just talking about that. How Jeffrey Katzenberg, right? Yeah. He vies for the top spot to be the president of Disney after Frank Wells actually passes away. 1 month after that, Michael Eisner's being rushed into the hospital for quadruple bypass surgery. And as he's recovering, still, he says, "Hey, I want to be the president. You should really nominate me for the position." And apparently, it was actually Michael Eisner's wife who was instrumental in getting Jeffrey Katzenberg booted from the Mouse House because of that. Very, very interesting how the wives come into play. That's why I bring Little Bay up here.
And there was even issues, at closer to the end with Katzenberg, a lot of the tugging back and forth. Yes, exactly. And he wanted more, as what he called more edge to the films. And I think that's where, him going over to DreamWorks, and that's how we got the birth of Shrek, because Shrek was that type of animated film where you kind of took the fairy tale likings of it, but it had that kind of crude humor that he wanted to infiltrate in the Disney genre, but they weren't going for it.
Yeah. I mean, there was definitely some competing interests there, right? You had kind of this the guard who was brought up by the old guard who was saying, hey, you know, we produce certain animated films a certain way, and Jeffrey Katzenberg wants to go ahead and kind of break that mold, so to speak, and then also kind of confine them to other molds. It was very, very interesting, that back and forth dynamic there. That's why I say lightning in a bottle, because that friction, you know, really creating some great stuff. But he was putting out stories in the trade saying, oh, I'm the reason why Disney Animation is as successful as it is, and so forth.
And he even had like a back and forth between the guys at Pixar, because if you actually look at the early storyboards for Toy Story,
right,
Woody was like very cringeworthy to even watch, because they had him like a very type of rough, gruff, rude type of character, and that's not what Lasseter wanted. But that's what Katzenberg wanted.
Well, Katzenberg lost all my respect. When I was watching the, I think it was the Howard documentary on Disney Plus. How I think it was that one. It might have been another doc. I don't remember. But anyway, irrelevant. But it was Katzenberg who was trying to talk Howard Ashman out of part of your world in Little Mermaid. Right, it's too slow. Kids aren't going to be able to sit through it, and that song has become one of the most iconic scenes in really cinema history. And I mean, that scene, the music, everything is like damn near flawless. And
it gave Jodie Benson her. Well, I mean, she had a career prior to that, but I mean, it skyrocketed her career because she constantly sings that song.
Yeah, right. And that was an instrumental part of that film. It's the "I Want" song, right? It sets the journey into motion. It's crazy how Jeffrey Katzenberg would want to remove that, but it also he wanted to remove "Can You Feel the Love Tonight," if I'm not mistaken, for The Lion King, which Elton John had some deep problems with. But look, Jeffrey Katzenberg's decision making. I mean, listen, you know, I there's a famous quote out there when DreamWorks was actually being established, because he made it a founding principle to go after Disney Animation and challenge them head on directly. One of the quotes is, "Revenge is not the best business strategy," right? And sure enough, you know, it kind of fizzled out there a little bit. But we you know, Jeffrey Katzenberg's decision making. Look, I remember Quibi. A lot of people don't remember Quibi. I remember Quibi, okay? And he bankrolled the hell out of that. And, you know, and that was very, very short-lived, right? So I wouldn't trust his decision-making all that much. But anyway, getting back to this kind of whole thing here, I haven't really seen, you know, executives challenge Disney on their positions regarding, you know, animation for a very, very long time. It's kind of fascinating how, you know, you are getting this kind of these competitive, let's say, statements from these executives looking to challenge Disney in terms of not just their you know, box office revenue, but also their key franchise. It's very fascinating.
It is, but you know, here's my thing, and I've been very consistent on this. I have never been a fan of kind of like the trash talk that Universal does on their Twitter account.
I'm not
never been a fan of it. You know, here's the thing: you want to know exactly how in my opinion, in my humble opinion, how these executives and these creatives should handle competition is how Kevin Feige's handling the James Gunn situation. He said, "You know what? I'm focused right now on working with James in regards to the new Guardians movie, but once he goes over to DC, I will be the first one in the theater to watch his films." Now that's friendly competition. He's not being snarky. He's not trashing them. He's not throwing them under the bus. That's for a respectful kind of just, hey, you know what? We're in competition with each other, but I'm going to be the first one there to check out your product. And unfortunately, I don't see a lot of that. I see a lot of just kind of snark and trash talk from Universal. And it does, as a Disney fan, it turns me off. I got to be honest. It does.
And for me, and I could be wrong, but anytime anybody was to do that, whether it's a one-on-one with a person or a company to another company, to me, that makes you very vulnerable and kind of insecure, because it's like, that's like their wall barrier that, oh, okay, we have to kind of make our jabs and our punches at Disney just to kind of lift our morale up. It's like, don't you have enough morale that you don't need to, you know, throw, you know, hate or, you know, at Disney or what have you? And I get it. It's all just in their minds, all like a friendly game of what have you. But I mean, I don't know. I think they could handle it much better. I'm not a fan of it either.
What do you think, Dre? I think you probably have a different opinion, but
no. I mean, look, you know, everybody has their own styles, right? And what they deem is effective. I just find it interesting how these studio heads and these executives are like making proclamations saying like we're gonna go after them. You know, we're gonna compete on their home turf, their territory, and so forth, and saying that their product is actually better. It's this kind of fascinating thing. I mean, look, Jeff Shell would be laughed out of the room if it was even 5 years ago, right? However, I think that kind of illuminates. Right? Illuminates the changes that are actually going on within the industry right now. This is a very competitive market, and like you said, OG, James Gunn has walked out the door and is doing stuff for their DCEU or whatever. Let's see what actually happens with that.
And I have my personal opinion on that Guardians trailer.
Well,
George.
Well, okay, all right, George. What's the opinions here? Let's go with it.
Well, because they never released that at the expo.
Okay.
So this was the one trailer that we didn't get to see. So I got to see it firsthand with everybody else. And I have to say, I'm not too thrilled with it. It kind of looks like a live action adaptation of the Guardians that got transported into Zootopia. That's what it kind of looks like to me.
I didn't think about the Zootopia thing, but with the animals, you're kind of right. Yeah.
I don't really see how, and I could be wrong. I'll eat crow if it turns out to be phenomenal. But I remember someone actually mentioned on social media that they said if they kill off Rocket, they're done. And I really am like, if they're going to kill off a character, it cannot be Rocket.
Don't touch him.
Yeah, no.
Protect Rocket at all costs. Do not let him die.
Yeah, man. Look, I'm a big Rocket fan myself, so I would have some words for sure if that actually happened. But look, listen, George, I got to be honest. I wasn't like super hyped for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 until I saw the holiday special. The holiday special was actually pretty good.
The holiday special was like on point, and that's actually I'm glad you actually brought that up. I actually enjoyed that more than the actual trailer for Volume 3 because they said that the holiday special is supposed to kind of set the stage for Volume 3.
Yes.
And so, I mean, I really wasn't too big on it. It kind of, am I still going to see it? Absolutely. Because I remember OG had mentioned it in a previous video that he's not too big on the films, but it's the characters.
Yeah.
That kind of, and that's what it is for me. I think the character arc for that storyline is just spot on.
Spot on. But I just want to say real quick before I get to Wizard's comment, just the overall though, like I think that approach, Feige's approach, that friendly competition is really the way to go. And and I think that you when you do that, it's it kind of lifts everybody up, and it's not just like taking pot shots at the other company. I know Disney's number one. I know they're the king, so it's trendy to kind of aim in that direction, but I think there's a way to do it. I don't know. And I'm speaking for myself. Like as a Disney fan though, I got to say, when I see these other companies kind of trashing the company that I love and adore, I'd be lying if I say it doesn't turn me off. It does. And I don't know, maybe everyone in the chat feels differently, but that's how I feel personally.
It shows brass. And I think these guys, I think they're ready to back up some of this stuff. It's going to be interesting to see what's going on here. But, we got to go ahead and showcase Theme Park Wizard here with the $20 super chat. Thank you so much. The back and forth donating continues. And I also love the Guardians of the Galaxy trailer. Gonna be heartbreaking. Yeah, I mean, the big rumor is that, and James Gunn has kind of alluded to this, right? Previously, that this might be the last iteration of a Guardians of the Galaxy film with this version of the Guardians. And now that James Gunn is actually working for an entirely different studio. And also Dave Bautista, who plays Drax, he officially confirmed he's done after. Yeah, he's
Volume
out.
3.
Yeah.
Oh,
so no surprise there. He's been kind of I don't know. He's been a little dramatic lately. if we have been following this whole thing,
It's the tight pants, Dre. It's the tight pants.
yeah, it's the tight pants and the shirts, and it's all very, very interesting. But California Dreamin' also comes at us with a $1.99 super chat. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Stoked for the Indy Refurb, and I guess we should get to that. I got something on my screen right here.
All right,
Scott
let's
Gooston.
do it. Let's do it.
Scott, this information comes to us from Scott Gooston on Twitter, who says Disneyland confirms Indiana Jones Adventure will be closed for refurbishment from January 9th until spring of 2023.
Thank God.
I just did a show with Theme Park Wizard. Actually, OG, we both did a show with Theme Park Wizard talking about the refurbishment schedules and so forth, and how a lot of things were going down on January 9th. It's great. The great moments of Mr. Lincoln, the Disney Gallery, Small World, Grizzly River Run, quite a number of things were going down, but one of those that was very, very interesting, other than Web Slingers, which is also very, very interesting, was Indiana Jones Adventure going down January 9th. And at the time, I was like, well, it all kind of depends on how long it's actually going to be down for. 5-day refurbishment, not much you can do, right? But if it was going to go down for some length of time, which they were kind of scheduling it in that window that it might, this was going to be a good, very, very good for Indy. Now we have confirmation that it's actually going down for some time. And it's kind of the amount of time that it was originally scheduled to go down for back in 2020. The company had officially announced at that time that Indiana Jones was going to go down for a pretty good chunk of time there, right in setting up for the summer season that year. Well, that of course it didn't happen, and we had permits that were filed for hundreds of thousands of dollars to do bridge work and all this kind of infrastructure work, and it just, unfortunately, a lot of that just didn't occur. And now we have this on the precipice. I think this is real good. I think this is I can't wait.
And
it needed it. Go ahead, George. I'm sorry.
No. I was just going to say, and especially it's a breath of fresh air to know that they don't really have an opening date. Once it goes down on January 9th, they kind of left it open that any time within spring. So in a sense, I'd rather them take their time with it, because there are certain elements of that when I rode the ride back in June and then also in September, that a lot of the elements in the ride were not working properly or were not up to their fullest potential. Two being the gigantic Cobra was not working. It was down for literally from June, that I can remember, from June all the way through to September, and probably still not functioning. And then also the effect of the giant boulder at the end.
Yeah. It's in rough shape. It's in rough shape, and it's obvious. Look, they put off the refurb during they were supposed to do it during the lockdowns, I believe, and they put it off, and so it's like almost 3 years after the fact. It's showing signs. It's showing signs of that delay, and I hope they go in there. I hope they clean up all the effects. I hope we get some new effects. I gotta be honest with you. I'm not a big fan of the rat room. I think it looks really, really, I don't know, kind of amateur. I think they can make better use of that space. I'd like to see maybe more like maybe projection mapping or something a little bit more creative in there. I see our friend Showcase and Casual say bring back the falling ice. That would be awesome.
That would be very, very cool. Right?
There's a lot they can do here. And I hope they take, seize the moment. Now, here's a question. Are they gonna, and we talked about this, Dre, on the phone, but I'm gonna bring it up for the audience so we can all kind of discuss it. But are they gonna include elements from Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny?
Yeah, so real quickly here, this is from the Disneyland Beat on YouTube here, showcasing kind of the current state of Indiana Jones right now and how a lot of effects aren't working. So in order to give our viewers some context here, so wanted to go ahead and give that a shout out. So the Dial of Destiny, that is kind of the big question mark, because I do remember how when the fourth film was actually coming out, the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, Disney Disney actually put on quite a bit of promotion for that film within the parks themselves. It was quite interesting. You had like a little stunt show that was actually occurring on various select times in and around Adventureland, which was really, really cool. But they did do a number of changes to the ride in order to kind of update it, and some minor infrastructural upgrades. They weren't huge, but one of the things they did change out was actually Indiana Jones himself. If you remember back in 1995, when the first time you actually see Indiana Jones on that actual attraction, he's kind of backed up against some doors right there, right? And he's kind of trying to hold them closed. In the update post Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and you can see that right there, that Indiana Jones figure, how he's kind of backed up in that way. For Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, he now has the figure is completely different. He now has kind of a shoulder on or arm on one of the doors right there, and he's looking back at your vehicle and telling you to go up to the left, right? So that was kind of one of those changes, and if you zoom in on your big old lens that I'm sure everybody brings into the parks themselves to document this kind of stuff, I hope you do. No, but you could see that he was kind of aged and so forth in order to make him more consistent with Harrison Ford of today. So it was kind of fascinating. Do we anticipate some of these changes coming here? I'm not quite sure, but it's possible.
Well, for California Dreamin', thank you again for gifting us with another $1.99. And actually, this is actually what I was going to bring up. What if the new movie bombs? Hope not. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm not sure if Disney is willing to put in that extra amount of money right now into something that they're not sure how it's going to play out during the time frame of when it's going to go down for the refurb.
Well, I mean, George, it doesn't really make sense to overhaul a complete attraction that's already getting a crazy amount of guests and that is extremely successful right now. It doesn't really quite make sense to make arbitrary changes that really don't. I mean, they don't even add capacity. So I think you're right, George. I think that's a big step for the company. I don't really foresee them doing that.
But maybe if they added a certain type of mist effect, that might be.
You know what?
There you
mist
go.
effect is interesting. OG, we can get that mist effect for the rat room. Maybe you sort it out with the power of that magic mist right there, right? Yeah, that alludes to a future conversation. Trust me, we'll have it. But look, we kind of make fun of it, but I don't really see them spending a whole lot of money in terms of like brand new effects that further incorporate it with the actual film. If the film is successful, then I could see them going back in there and going like, okay, here we got to change some stuff up here, and maybe they lay down some infrastructure in order to facilitate some of those changes in the future.
Maybe
that's possible too. Yeah. But really, I think what's more important is to get a lot of these effects working again. The rat effect, like you said, OG, I think a number of Imagineers have kind of like, okay, can we change that out? What is it? The snake. That needs to be addressed. The rolling boulder. From what I understand, there's some specialty parts there that have kept that up, and maybe those parts have come in. We'll see. Also, too, the ice effect. It would be really, really great to have a new projection effect. Kind of make up for that loss right there. There's a number of things that they can do. I think the big thing right now, though, is to get the infrastructure up on that attraction in order to make it more reliable, and maybe a change of the computer system. That was the big kind of rumor that was going into the 2020 refurb, that these are still 95 computers. Yeah. Right?
Because
they're a little old.
Because aside from Rise, I mean, Indy is like, alongside with Rise, is one of the main attractions that is constantly down.
Yes.
On an everyday basis.
And one of the reasons is because a lot of those computer systems were just, they weren't, they weren't as, let's say, they didn't have the certain complexities or the ability to manage and handle a lot of the kind of, what is it? A lot of the operational headaches that occur in real life, right? Computer systems have gotten far more sophisticated in order to take in order to take certain stops and goes into account and so forth, and the processing has gotten so much better. Unfortunately, Indy simply isn't capable of handling a lot of those things right now, which is why it goes down constantly. If you can get the kind of computer system upgrades that this attraction is really needed for.
Yep.
Wow, we're talking like 27 years now since it opened. It's a long time. Things have changed. I think we can update this.
Now,
But I
here's a
have
question.
to say, sorry, just really quick,
Sure.
casual. I have to say, if Dre is going to become the CEO, I call dibs on being the CFO because I'm a big Italian. I love to eat, so you won't have to worry about your waistline.
Oh yeah, there you
Holy
go.
cannoli, holy cannoli.
Nice,
That's great.
nice. I like.
Oh
it.
yeah, no,
I like
and I agree. I agree with casual. I would love Vash to be the Disney CEO, man. That'd be so badass, dude.
You're too kind. You're too kind. Well, look,
Come on,
I will-
Vash.
Listen, if I can't have CEO, I'll settle for chairman. I'll settle for chairman of Parks and
There you
Resorts.
go.
We'll get those things accomplished right there. OG, you can be the CEO, and George CFO. I think we're perfect right here.
We're good. We're good. So I wanted to ask you guys a question because I think this is kind of interesting. We've seen this kind of like, I don't want to say shell game, but it kind of is in a way, like with Avengers Campus, right? Where they dip into the marketing of a certain movie to pay for additions into the land, right?
Yes.
So, Multiverse of Madness, right? Like the studio budget pays for a lot of the character walk-arounds, the costumes, things like that.
Sure.
Is there a scenario, and I'm just throwing it out there, just for conversation's sake, is there a scenario though that they pull from the studio budget of Indy 5 to add some elements to the attraction? Is that a possibility? Maybe
Part of the marketing budget.
right.
Well,
Or not really.
I'll put the kibosh on that right now because if Kathleen Kennedy was at all interested in having a cross-pollination with the parks, she would have done so already, probably with the actual with Star Wars Galaxy's Edge.
That's
We've
true.
seen very, very little of that, unfortunately. It's just this is why. This is one of the big reasons why. It's like, why is she still there? But
Right. Exactly.
That's besides the point, right? Kevin Feige, he understood that hey, you know what? If you incorporate a lot of that marketing, some of that marketing budget into the parks themselves, it creates not only a better experience for guests, but it really kind of hypes them up and kind of keeps them engaged with the Marvel brand. So a little bit more savvy on that front. We just have not seen that from Kathleen Kennedy so far. In other aspects, I don't anticipate that translating here as well.
And that's good news. And I'm not like, I actually like the trailer. I like the trailer. I'm excited for the movie, but I don't want to see it. I don't want to see any of that stuff really in the ride. The attraction is great the way it is. Obviously, there's some effects and stuff that could use some polishing up or what have you, but I don't want to see any like new animatronic. I don't want them to basically do what they did to Pirates with Jack Sparrow. I don't want that. We're good the way it is. Just update the effects.
Well, I wouldn't. I'll say this. If you want to talk about kind of this cross-referencing here, you have the what is it, the Chamber of Destiny, right? Where you got the 3 rooms right there, and one of them is the Vision of the Future, right? Well, that could have a little bit of like Dial of Destiny, like maybe an artifact, like it's kind of hanging around there that's connected to it or whatever. You could do a little bit of
Subtleties.
Yes, subtle nods to the film.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, I think that's about as far as I would go, though.
Yeah,
to be honest.
I would dig that. That's a good idea. That's a really good idea.
Because there's even times like when they take these attractions, and even if it's not like a permanent fixture within the attraction, but sort of like just like an overlay, sometimes that could be a hit or miss. And I actually wanted to bring this up many shows ago, but due to my heavy work schedule, I didn't really get to. But actually, right at that scene right there is one of my issues, and I'm probably going to get flack from it, is the giant cobra kind of throws me off the whole entire attraction, because it's something that it seems like it was mutated and it grew to the bigger than the vehicle. Me personally, and here's where I'm going to get flack, I would actually take that cobra out and maybe create something like a snake pit with some sort of cool technological way. Like there's a bunch of normal size snakes surrounding the vehicle, and maybe do something like that than just have like one big giant snake.
I think it was George Lucas's idea to have the big giant snake, or somebody. Go ahead, OG.
Well, no, I want to give you credit. We talked about this. I forgot what show it was, but you said, I remember you explaining it where like, I think it was either Lucas or Tony Baxter.
Yeah.
Where they wanted it to feel like it's not mutated. It's like a perspective thing. Like you're seeing it if the snake was coming. Like if you were laying down and a snake came up close to you, you would see it bigger, obviously, because it's up close. And they were kind of going for that effect.
Well,
it doesn't work. So it sucks. It doesn't work.
It doesn't quite work.
It doesn't work because you see it a mile away. So it's this huge snake sitting there waiting for you. So it's like the effect isn't there. I agree with you, George. I would much rather have them and put something else in that spot.
This
weird.
This snake reminds me of the holiday overlay of Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. It just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
It's, yeah. You could, there's something to be said about it for sure. No question. I don't.
No,
I don't
just say it. Just say it, Dre. Just kill that thing. Make it extinct.
Well, I'll say this. As a kid, that snake freaked me out. So I'll say this: it's effective at it's kind of a jump scare. But yeah, I mean, it's not the outrageous greatest effect there, right? And yeah, as Theme Park Casual states, homage to the scene in Raiders when Indy is face to face with the Cobra. Yeah, that's kind of what that's referencing right there for sure. And I think George Lucas, I think he like mandated that it, or maybe Tony Baxter on this discussion. I can't remember which one had which idea, but the other necessitated that they have like 100 other kind of like normal size snakes interwoven amongst.
That would have been cool.
Put it in the rat room. That could be put in the rat room.
Put it in the rat room.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Never quite thought of it. My idea for the rat room and for that kind of dark segment, because you like stop there for a second and then you're in there again. My idea was like, okay, like you stop in darkness, the lights illuminate, and then you see like the spikes actually coming from the floor and the ceiling, right? And maybe your tire pops and you kind of like feel that jolt or whatever, and then you have to get out of there.
See,
like,
this is why you're chairman of the parks.
I was gonna say this is why. Well, I was gonna say this is why you're CEO. I mean, that's a fantastic idea. I love it. I absolutely see stuff like that. You can do really cool stuff with. I think there's so many possibilities with that room. It's really just a blank canvas and nothing in it. Nothing in it.
I know there's nothing in it, and there were talks about like, hey, maybe at a later date we fill up some of those sequences that are kind of in the dark with something else, as time goes on. That just never really happened. Maybe this is an opportunity to kind of get some of that stuff installed in one way or another. Yeah. We'll see. I don't anticipate major changes to the actual attraction, but man, a fixing up, a polishing up, a repaint, the bug room too. Can we get a new projector in there?
Yeah.
There's I think there's a number of things that will increase the overall experience tremendously, and not for all that much money.
And how ingenious were they with that bug room? Were the from what I understand, it's the headlights on the Jeep that are projectors that project the bugs onto the wall. How freaking brilliant is that?
That is brilliant if it worked that way.
Oh, does it? That's what I thought it was.
Yeah, well, so it's a clever trick. There's a projector to the side that just shines the beam right in front of your Jeep and kind of follows the Jeep as it goes along. That's kind of how that. Yeah, I know. It got you, right? I know.
It got me. Well, good effect. I thought they did.
It's a great effect, but it doesn't quite work that way. Maybe they can do that though. Maybe they can.
I was just going to say, and just to kind of give my 2 cents on the trailer for Indy 5. I actually did get to see the trailer at the expo, and I think nothing was more refreshing about that whole segment when Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones himself, came out and got really choked up and was very proud of this film, and he said this is a film that was done right, and he says I really feel like we did this for the fans, and this is kind of his exit to kind of put the hat and the whip down, and this is going to be Indy's final ride. So I am very excited about it.
Now, did you see the Mangle tweets?
Yes.
Did you see those, Dre?
I I didn't. What did Mangold say?
Okay, let's get into this, and then we're going to do some Splash Mountain. We'll talk the Mangold
Okay,
trees.
yeah,
We'll
okay.
let me go ahead and pull them up. Give me just a second, guys.
Please do. Yes. So, look, George, I'm encouraged that Harrison was emotional over those things. Very, very encouraged. Our buddy Casual thinks Vash didn't want to tell him. I had to. Also, Casual, I saw your message up there. Yes, you can absolutely be the president of Disneyland. I'll go ahead and make that appointment thusly. But no, I'm encouraged that Harrison was very emotional about that. Like, I want to see the best indie film that we can possibly see for sure. I love this character so much. It's just, man, I watched some of that trailer and it's like, is this gonna be quite the thing that they're kind of hyping this thing up to be? We'll see on that. Obviously, we have to wait for the actual film to come out. But yeah, it's some of those digital effects, like we were saying, didn't look all that great. Now his de-aging looks flawless. I mean, honestly, the best I've ever seen it, and we've seen a lot of this kind of post processing, right? This whether it's Tarkin or Leia or Luke or whatever, we've seen a lot of that from the Lucasfilm studio before. This is definitely the best that I've ever seen it. But some of those other effects, they're a little wonky. So we'll definitely have to we'll have to see on that. OG, you got the tweets up?
I got it. Okay, so Mango, this was from December 2nd, so just a couple days ago. He said, one more time, no one is taking over or replacing Indy or donning his hat, nor is he being erased through some contrivance, and he never was. Contrivance, and he never was, not in any cut or script, but trolls will troll. That's how they get their clicks. He goes on to say, and please don't exhaust me pointing out how once in a while a troll is right. Even a blind squirrel finds a nut now and then. All one has to do is look at set photos and interviews, and you get enough info to make wild guesses about a movie plot. Last thing says, the difference between trolling a-holes and everyone else is that they're trying to make money off your feelings about other films and culture war politics. They push controversial guesses as coming from sources to gin up clicks. Let it go. And that's interesting.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of this. Right? I've seen a lot of this, like, Frank Marshall and Mangold, like the screening controversy, for example, right? Obviously, there are, some people claiming that there were early screenings for the actual film. Mangold and Frank Marshall absolutely rejects that. Oh no, we've not had any screenings. We've not done that at all. That's completely wrong, completely false. Whatever. It's interesting how Mangold and Frank Marshall, however, like they feel compelled to get that information out there. Like. If it's just them, if it's just people, saying this on their YouTube channels, it's like, okay, whatever. Well, that's them. We're doing our film. We're doing this whole thing. I find it odd though that they had to that they keep referencing people like this, and we've seen that in actual shows themselves, like She-Hulk, for example.
100%. But is it just, here's the thing though, I can kind of see their perspective though, because it's not just a YouTube channel necessarily. It's not like just some YouTuber out there with 100 followers, right? Or something. This is like, some of these YouTubers have thousands and thousands, and it's not just that one YouTuber, then every other subsequent YouTuber with thousands and thousands of followers spreads the same rumor. So you have the entire internet after a while a buzz about something that might not even be true. I can kind of see why a filmmaker might want to nip that in the bud, because it could hurt the film, their prospects. I mean, do you just let
so they're admitting that they're influential? Is that right?
Well, I don't know what they're admitting. I would say they're influential, because I think that you have these big channels that spread over YouTube, and they're all repeating the same thing, and it becomes, hey, look, you say it enough and it becomes true, right? I mean, at least perception wise.
But that's kind of the rule in politics. Isn't that kind of a win for them though? That you would even acknowledge them at all, and that you would even concede the point that they are influential? It's
a win for them, but at the same time, what do? Do you give them that win, Or do you let them control the narrative and your movie doesn't do as well because they're spreading lies that the movie sucks?
The movie speaks for itself.
But do people even get to that point though?
But that's
Well,
that's,
I mean,
that's,
word of
that's
mouth.
where people it's like a we're creatures of habit. So it's
Yeah.
like when one person says one thing, it's like you really take it to heart to say, oh my God, this person who may be an influential on social media, and it's like, oh, they say it completely sucks. So I have to already have a mentality that I'm going to go into this thing and I'm going to hate it. So subconsciously, you could come out of a movie theater and you may not really hate it, but because you saw someone else mentioning it first in the back of your mind, you're automatically going to try to find something to say, oh, I agree with them on that.
I guess
Yeah.
so. I mean, the way it kind of works for me though is like because I've heard some rumors and stuff connecting to films and so forth, and you actually go to see the film and you're like, oh, well, it didn't feature that or didn't have that or whatever. I was pleasantly surprised more than anything. So it's I can see the argument, OG, for sure. You don't want to necessarily set the narrative or whatever, but do you necessarily address some of those things in that way directly from these creatives? Don't you use like the trades or some kind of other outlet in order to do that? I don't know.
That's fair.
That's kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
probably what I
Well-
would do.
well,
Also,
and the
too,
way-
oh, go ahead.
Well, and no, and real quick, yeah, you're absolutely right on that. I mean, the way he handled it, Mangold handled it, and calling them assholes and stuff, yeah, that's not the way to do it. Do it through the trades. I'm all down for that, but I do think sometimes you do have to address it and kind of nip it in the bud. Otherwise, it runs rampant and it turns people off. Go ahead, Ray. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the attacking the fans thing. That to me, even if they're necessarily not enthusiastic about your product or whatever, that attacking the fans, that really does rub me the wrong way. It's like it we talk about these kind of executives and how George, you brought up the point how they're kind of insecure in their position. That rings of insecurity to me when you actually attack fans based on a product you produce, right? Your
fair.
product should really speak for itself, and I understand these
And it
are
really
kind of-
should be that way. And it really should be that way. That's, it should be if a movie's great, it's because it's great. If a movie
Right.
sucks, it's because it sucks. But it's like people just kind of tend to go that route where it's like, oh, you have to listen from this person to this person to this person. Make your own assumption. Make your own opinion.
these people are very, these creatives who actually develop these projects. They're very personal about these projects, right? You pour your heart, blood, and soul into these things for years and years and years. All that, we all know that some creatives are kind of more, maybe let's say, eccentric than others, right? So I can see kind of how some of these people get caught up in that. But man, you have to fight that with every single, member of your being. I think before you resort to name calling. In terms of setting the narrative, you can definitely make the point, OG, for sure.
Yeah.
What we also don't do is include them in actual product itself, right? The She-Hulk thing with the Doomcock connection, that was embarrassing. I mean, just ridiculous.
That was embarrassing, and that was something that that particular, and I forgot her name, but the showrunner or director or whatever, the gal who did that show,
right,
was clearly in it to rock the boat, to put fuel on the fire and just to stir shit up.
I forgot her name. I just pretty much call her her.
Yeah, her.
Wow.
Well, it's I heard something very, very interesting. It was like, I was listening to reviews of Strange World and so forth like that, and what they were saying was one of the quotes that kind of stuck out in my mind was, these people who worked on this film clearly thought that this was like one of the most important things that they had ever worked on, right? That they're kind of like imbuing not just creativity into their product, but also like I don't want to say agenda, but there's more to it than just the creative piece itself, right? There's a little bit of ideology in there as well. And it definitely felt like that with certain parts of She-Hulk. Obviously, it was kind of directed towards a certain group of individual and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know, these things are just kind of, they're embarrassing. They're, it's like your job, and that's not to diminish anybody's opinion or the right to speak or whatever. It's just like, you create films. That's what you do. This idea that we're going to fight every single, what is the fandom menace and all this kind of stuff. It's it's nonsense. Like, why get in the muck of the mire? I always say.
You got to pick your battles. You got to pick your battles. Like when that rumor came out, I think it was from Doomcock actually, about the Indy 5 thing and how there were test screenings and it was like a huge failure and Chapek was furious and this, that, and the other. That's a pretty big rumor. I mean, I could see why Mangold in the studio would like want to put that fire out because that can spread and then you already painted a picture of this movie before it's even out. Oh, this movie is horrible. And I can see that. But now this other stuff, some of these other creatives, like you said, they go after the Phantom Menace and they get into these little squibbles with them. Like Pablo from
Pablo Hidalgo from
come on.
It's the man baby thing.
Yeah. It's too much.
It's too much.
You gotta pick your battle.
You do. It's interesting on those screenings though. I mean, I have heard from sources even outside of Doomcock that there was some kind of internal screenings for executives and so forth that might have taken place. Again, I don't know the veracity of these rumors, but it is kind of interesting how there's kind of this back and forth tug of war going on between these creatives and the Phantom Menace or Phantom Menace adjacent accounts and so forth. I think that's quite a fascinating.
Well, and our buddy that junk man is actually offering, and I swear to God, he made a video and a tweet about this. He's offering $5,000 to anyone that can prove that they went to one of these screenings that Doomcock is saying it happened. So if you went to one of those screenings, message that junk man on Twitter because work something out with them.
It's interesting. That's an interesting point. I like that. Now,
put your money where your mouth is.
If these are internal screenings and you have signed NDAs, think about it before you accept that $5,000. However, if it is just test screenings, there you go. Get your $5,000.
Yeah. I mean, if these screenings happen, somebody that signed those NDAs leaked it to a guy with a mask and a voice changer on YouTube.
That's it.
So they're not that so maybe they'll reach out to Junkman and
we also heard Cameron Pasha has gotten some of his sources funneling some of this stuff too. So it's interesting. It's out there. I'm just saying it's out there.
It's out there.
Saying it's true. It's just out there.
It's out there.
I hate when people try to. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Theme Park Casual says, I hate when they try to say, quote, people worked hard. So what? They worked hard and made a crappy movie. That's look, Casual is a
hashtag Love and Thunder.
Yeah, exactly right.
Oh man,
he's a guy who has created some wonderful art pieces and has had. He works in the creative space. I'll just put it that way, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting that he would say that, and I don't know, man. I'm sympathetic to that argument as well.
Yeah, and Showcase endorses Casual, spot on.
Yeah. Now, look, listen. If people want to go ahead and critique me, I invite that critique. I do. Yeah. We all kind of work hard to put out this content, but hey, if it sucks, it sucks. If it doesn't resonate, it doesn't resonate.
I mean, and that's
those
even
things.
Oh, sorry. And I was just going to say, and that's just like even not just with movies, it goes by with rides and attractions too. You can have something that's so great that could just be great for the end of time, but then you could just rock the boat and I don't know, maybe turn it a little bit less than really what it already is. I mean, do we know a ride sort of like that?
I think it's time to dig a little deeper, OG.
Let's go. Let's talk some Splash Mountain, or the attraction formerly known as Splash Mountain.
Yeah. Right.
So it was finally announced, the Splash Mountain closing date for now, not Disneyland, but Walt Disney World. And actually, that's interesting, fellas, because this Indy closure at Disneyland, that's going to impact. Oh, look at there it is.
See.
There it is. This Indy closure is going to impact, I think, the Splash Mountain closing at Disneyland, because you can't have two biggie tickets down at once. So that'll be interesting. But Walt Disney World is going down in January. What do you think, Dre?
It's going down in January. January, what is it, 22nd? It's going to be your last time to ride Splash Mountain at Walt Disney World. January 23rd. It is closed. This is very, very interesting. You can go ahead and show the art on my screen
absolutely.
right there. This is the kind of new art. The first commissioned, I think, for Walt Disney World proper that I've seen. And it looks like, to me, a little bit of a redone version of the famous concept art that we've seen before with Louis the Alligator, Tiana, even Naveen was featured in that other art, and these animal characters were also featured, but in the kind of the background. This seems to be a little bit different. I was speaking of theme park wizard. Thank you so much for the $2 super chat. Splash Mountain inspired by Tiana's Bay Adventure. Agreed, right? Yeah. We just did a show together last night, which you can, after you're done watching this, of course, pop over on his channel and definitely check that out. We talked about it a little bit there as well. I was saying on with Wizard though that it seems that this art has been kind of slow rolled out as the Imagineers themselves kind of figure out what they're gonna do. And it looks like they're gonna implement some of these changes. And look, it looks nice. But I was saying to Wizard, I don't know, it just doesn't, to me, kind of like I'm not booking a vacation package for this. I'm sorry, I'm intrigued, but I don't know. It looks okay. What do you guys think?
Well, go ahead, George. Go ahead.
No, you go.
I wanted to share this tweet by our buddy Glimpses, this is actually something that I've kind of considered too when I was riding the attraction.
Yeah.
But our buddy DG says, I am personally optimistic about the new attractions at Splash Mountain. A lot of people are citing budget as proof that it will be a flop, but in reality, the most expensive pieces are already built. When you look at the scenes that require great attention, it's not overwhelming. Now, I was kind of noticing that, though, when I was riding Splash Mountain. There's a lot of, and granted, a lot of this is because a lot of the light bulbs are burnt out, to be fair. But when it's a massive structure, no doubt, but there aren't that many scenes. Like, he's kind of right. Like, if you really break down each scene, it doesn't take that much work to convert it. Are we off base with this, or what do you think, Dre?
I think Walt Disney World's a little bit bigger of a task, right? Because it's a little bit larger of an attraction, and I think there are more scenes included there. But you're right, though. It's not going to take all that much to change this over, and that might be one of the reasons why the budget is what it is. I've heard that it's not the most amazing budget in the world. However, DG is very bullish that they're getting quite a bit for this actual refurb. We'll have to see which one actually bears out. But it's going to be interesting because, as I was telling Wizard last night, Tony Baxter and the gang that actually develops Splash Mountain thought of a great way to reduce maintenance on this attraction, which was to make all of the sets out of concrete as opposed to actual wood, plywood and plaster and so forth, because a lot of the previous attractions in which they've employed those techniques, they suffer from wood rot. So a way to kind of let's say extend the life of some of these scenes and sequences was to make them out of concrete just from jump. So the problem is, to change some of these things out, you're going to need jackhammers. So that itself will mandate its own budget and so forth. And I'm going to be very, very interested to see how they actually do that, because the previous group who worked on Splash Mountain had a very difficult time making any changes to this attraction once it was actually complete. So that's an interesting point there for sure. But George, I mean, do you like this scene? How it's all kind of developing and so forth? I mean, do you like what you're seeing? Are you intrigued? Are you, is this moving the needle in terms of booking a vacation package?
No.
Okay.
There you go.
Now we know our answer. And this is what's difficult. Going back to Wizard's super chat right there, inspired by Tiana's Bay Adventure. Yeah, I don't know, like it's definitely an overlay, right? And I think he was making the point, like, for like the Tower of Terror into Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout, right? That it feels like a different attraction entirely, even though it's using a lot of the same infrastructure, of course, right? Like it feels different. Here, it doesn't quite feel as unique.
And in all its seriousness, and actually Showcase says it 2 years later for that, and it's like it really is. It's like it took them that long to produce this. It looks nice, but it doesn't blow me away. It's something. It just feels like a reskin. It's almost like they said, okay, let's take this attraction and let's just kind of work with it as we go along. They never really had a full fleshed out plan of really what to do with this.
No, they didn't. They were definitely fly by night, developing as it goes. This idea that it was like, oh, we were working on it years before this, not true at all. That them working on it was like a team of like 2 people, okay, doing some field work. That's the extent of that. It's the whole thing is nonsense if you ask me. But this news comes from us by Brooke G. McDonald here. Also new, Disney has shared a new piece of concept art for Tiana's Bayou Adventure, which we just saw, introducing a new animal characters playing Zydeco music, quote, a special blend of rhythm and blues that was born in Louisiana. And this is what brings us to the kind of the next point I want to make here. And you can see right here, the expectation gap. I think there's a lot of people that are going to go into this thinking that they're going to get a Princess and the Frog attraction, not realizing that it's a food co-op find this special ingredient attraction, right? And if they're going so far as to not only go with a new story, but also new music as well.
Well, look even at Tiana, even in the concept art. I mean, when I look at her, I'm sorry, that's not Tiana.
There is going to be this disparity, right? But I think people expect to see Tiana as they've seen Tiana in past work, and this is definitely a different take of it for sure. Also, too, somebody was talking about West L. Thank you. It must have Dr. Facilier in order to make it work. Yeah, it won't feature some of the characters that you know and love from the actual film because it's a sequel attraction. And should I play this clip again?
Oh yeah, no,
with our girl Ashton here.
Yeah, let's do it.
This is what I'm talking about when it comes to the expectation gap, right? Ashton the Slytherin, we had her on the channel. A lovely girl. We got to have her on back again. Fantastic woman for sure. But she was very excited about this, right? And this was before a lot of this information even was released for D23 Expo. But we had been hearing that it was going to be a sequel attraction even back then, and she was excited about it. She was singing its praises, and she was hopeful of the things that she would see. Watch her reaction when I inform her that maybe that's going to be a little bit different.
Like him as a firefly, not like actually as an animated firefly, but actually see him like on the walls, like in lights.
Yeah.
Like and like narrating the whole story. And then like we'll see Louis playing his like trumpet. I don't know. I love them as characters.
Well, what if I told you that Dr. Facilier and Ray wouldn't be featured at all? Because
oh my gosh,
this is a sequel attraction.
I don't want it anymore. Get rid of it.
So, yeah. I think a lot of people are going to go into this thinking, oh, I'm going to see that. I'm going to hear the songs. Maybe. Okay, maybe. We've seen from multiple posts that there's going to be original music, so that might not be possible. I can't wait to see Ray. And I can't wait to see Dr. Facilier. All things not going to happen, and it's going to have a new story involved here.
Well, and when they first made the announcement that this was even going to be transpired into I'm not even going to call it Princess and the Frog because it's not what it is. I'm sorry. This is a rendition off of the story Princess and the Frog. But in my mind, when you're climbing that final hill and you hear that bump, 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 are you ready? Like that's what I envision. Where you kind of see like all the shadows surrounding you, and then you got the, and the voodoo dolls, and then that's when you take the final drop, out of the tunnel down, into the bayou, what have you. That's what I envisioned. Yeah. But when they said this, I don't even know what you would even call this.
Well, I guess it's going to be Mama Odie. That's going to be prominent in that scene, taking you up the lift hill right there, as we saw in the model back at D23 Expo. It's just there is a great Princess and the Frog attraction somewhere, and I would argue that there's a great Princess and the Frog overlay for Splash Mountain somewhere in some parallel universe. It's just I just don't think that this group of Imagineers is capable in providing us that. Instead, they almost looked at the IP with contempt. I don't know what it is. They're so far away from, I think, what people envisioned as being a Princess and the Frog attraction that it's just unrecognizable at this point.
You know, it's interesting, this whole idea of like doing the attraction based on the series. It would be like making a Beauty and the Beast attraction off the direct-to-DVD Christmas special, right?
Oh my God, that's so funny, OG.
Right?
My mom said the exact same thing.
Me and your
said the
mom are
exact
the
same thing.
That's exactly what it feels like, because you have Belle, you got the Beast, but it's not the same music, right? It's reminiscent of the original movie, but it's not there. You're not going to get Be Our Guest. You're not going to, right? Same idea.
That is so funny. But she was saying, I think in the she didn't use quite Beauty and the Beast. Maybe she did, but she was just saying, like, the kind of sequels, right? Why would you at all base an actual attraction utilizing an IP, but not featuring any of the moments that you remember from it? I mean, to Rise of the Resistance credit, it was fantastic that we kind of, got takes on some of the things that we actually saw from The Force Awakens, right? The kind of like the prison scene, the whole deal with you're actually locked in there. Very reminiscent of the scene with Kylo Ren and Poe, right? We like there's moments there where it's like, oh yeah, I remember seeing that in some Star Wars footage, and it kind of evokes that, but also provides a story that's definitely connected to it. In this way, with the kind of Fantasyland type of attraction, I think people are going to be looking for that kind of, as Tony Baxter would say, that kind of book report, the kind of seeing of the scene, seeing those scenes that they remember from those from the film.
Oh man, and then and I have actually this is an exclusive, you guys.
Oh yes,
this is Disney's response to people who thought they were getting the book report attraction.
Oh, okay.
Here we go. This is exclusive, only here on OG55. Sad, really sad.
Man, Disney knows how to interact with his fans. I must confess.
Oh man, no, it is messed up though, because you do have this perception of like a certain thing, and I think you brought it up great too the other day, Dre, on the phone, where you said it would be like making a Mary Poppins attraction based on the sequel. It's like, okay, but we want supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. We want we want these songs that are so like connected to this franchise.
But which is funny, because I think actually with Cherry Tree Lane, that was supposed to be adapted into Epcot with the UK Pavilion, I think that's where they were kind of leaning towards.
They were
Mary Poppins Returns.
They were leaning towards it, but it was going to feature both. It was going to, they wouldn't. I know, OG, you love Mary Poppins Returns, and look, there's some great stuff in there. But you would be remiss not to feature some of the original Sherman Brothers songs, which 100%. I do believe that Mary Poppins attraction would have featured, absolutely. And it's just like, the trouble is you have this attraction that is beloved by not just, Twitter enthusiastic fans, let's say, but also normies, the general audience, right? They love this attraction. And you're giving them something that a lot of them are just not expecting. And I there's going to be a gap there, along with losing an attraction that everybody loves.
And it's not even really just the attraction itself. And I get a lot of people have their own differences of opinion of where it originated from, but this is actually the last leg, so to speak, that once they cut this off, there's no more any kind of incorporation of any of the characters, Brer Rabbit, Brer Fox, Brer Bear, that's going to be in the parks. And that's including even the music with Zippity Doo-Dah and the Laughing Place. And it's all going to be history, literally. And it's going to be history that's not going to be discussed or brought up ever again unless, you know, we end up bringing it up on the show, because no one in the normal community, so to speak, that's not part of the Disney community, I don't think would ever really talk about it again.
No, it'll be gone. It'll be completely removed. Zippity Doo-Dah, the characters,
the anthem of the park. The anthem of the park. How can it's like
I know. I think Disney Glimpses said it, so I'll give him credit for this one. He was like, I can't believe Disney acquiesced to a fringe mob on Twitter when it regards this attraction, right? And I kind of have to agree. It's like we're getting rid of Disney, you know, very, very, what is it? Important Disney history, right? All in the name of, you know, what exactly, right? And it's weird. Every single poll that I see, every single metric that I find that you know, attempts to seek the popularity for a decision like this, it's completely unpopular, and it's just it really does make no sense. It's definitely a uncharted water before. I'm sorry, uncharted waters that we're seeing here. We've never really seen this before from Disney, that they would change their beloved attraction like this to something that's not even the IP that they're actually forwarding here, but kind of their own interpretation or adaptation of that IP. It's a very, very, very bizarre thing. Getting rid of the Zippity Doo-Dah in totality, it's troubling, and hopefully doesn't foreshadow, you know, bad things to come in terms of the other attractions that are featured in these parks.
Yeah, no, I know, because you can go into any attraction, to be quite honest with you, and nitpick it and find something problematic about it, you know. And I'm not diminishing. I'm not trying to like diminish people's concerns with this attraction. I mean, look, if you feel like this is a problematic IP, by all means, you know. But I think, in my opinion, I think this was a kind of this is very reactionary. You know, there were definitely other ways to handle it. I think our buddy DG even said, like, why don't they create a movie or a TV show or something around these characters, so it's based on like the Song of the South characters, and kind of reinterpret things a little bit. So it's more focused on that retelling and not the old movie, right? I think it was DG who said that, and that's a great idea.
Great idea.
You know, why don't they do that? But they decided again, they just throw the whole thing out. Yeah,
and as some people have speculated, this is definitely, you know, Disney has used events, right, in order as opportunities, as Josh D'Amaro himself would say, in order to do the things that Disney has wanted to do for a while. And yeah, maybe it's to get away from Splash Mountain. Sad to see. Doc Hart, you erase history. How are others to learn from it, teach from it? Yep, exactly. Theme Park Wizard. You had a poll yourself. 58% say stay. And that included a bunch of answers there, but the plurality was definitely stay. It's not made you think they'll leave any Splash Mountain Easter eggs in. It's interesting. Friend of the channel, contributor to the channel, Alia actually reached out to Disney in order to preserve some of the voice talent that had been featured by prominent African American voices featured in, you know, for some of these characters and so forth, right? And she was reaching out to say, hey, can we utilize some of these voices, or have some of these African American voice actors actually included in this rendition of this ride? And they actually did reach back to her and say, hey, yeah, we'll in not so many words, we'll consider this for sure. So, you know, maybe we get something there, but unfortunately, there's not going to be too many connections. And yeah, the audiomatronics are definitely a concern. You know, Walt Disney World, I understand that a lot of those animatronics were fabricated for that attraction. But for Disneyland, one of the most prominent things about Disneyland's version is that they reutilized so many of those original audio animatronic figures created by Mark Davis for America Sings, that attraction that they incorporated into Disneyland for the bicentennial celebration that the Disney company had at the time. To lose those audio animatronics, that would be a real shame. Right. But I'm hearing as well that might be on the chopping block as well.
Well, an interesting thing too, and I'm kind of treading into some controversial territory here, but I think it's worth saying. The friend of the channel, Theme Park Wizard,
yep,
is a person of color. And he's been very bullish on Splash Mountain staying. Now, I was told that this is being rethemed because this community finds it offensive. And there are people in this community that absolutely find it offensive. But what about people like Wizard who don't? I don't know. I think that's worth mentioning, that maybe not everyone is offended by it. And why only listen to one portion and completely disregard the other? I don't know.
It's troubling, and this follows, I think, a trend of troubling actions taken by the Walt Disney Company and all kinds of this stuff, right? And Bob Iger was even asked about this at his town hall, and he had an interesting answer to all this. It's a shame. Yeah, Theme Park Casual, Lorena Creel, yeah, against the retheme as well, and she's been very outspoken about that for sure. Some of the family members connected some of these people who were involved in Song of the South and Splash Mountain are also against this. Go ahead, George.
Well, no, and even Wizard had mentioned about it's all animals, which actually it's true, because you guys were just saying, what if they did a movie or a show that can kind of tie in the characters in a different way? And really, Splash Mountain really isn't too much connected to the original Song of the South. They reference nothing of Uncle Remus, which in a sense, even if they did, again, got to give it to James Baskett. I mean, a phenomenal actor. I mean, he deserved that Oscar. But I'm just saying, just the characters within themselves, the storyline just incorporates the music and the storyline of the characters themselves. It never showed anything of the live action sequences from the film.
Yeah, I mean, Netizen. Yeah, look, I don't. I understand it's how they want to portray certain communities in the parks. I understand that. If you had a problem with Splash Mountain, I've heard from people, it's like, well, I don't like, the accents, I think, are troubling. Okay, re-record the audio. It's.
But what I don't understand is I have never yet seen a person bash that attraction while actually being in the park. I have yet. Even this is coming from the Disney community, and everyone is in those parks. I have never yet seen anybody bash that attraction. If anything, I see people running towards it. Literally, right at rope drop, everybody goes towards Splash Mountain. It has like a 90-minute wait within less than an hour of park opening.
And it's going to be higher now that they've announced that it's officially closing and the date for it. Right. It's weird, I used to frequent the parks regularly with people of African American descent, and never they never said anything disparaging of the attraction. In fact, it was one of their favorites. So it's I understand times change, but you can change attractions as well in ways that don't absolutely erase history.
Nietzsche brings up an interesting point. Animals with stereotypic voices, and absolutely the case, Nietzsche in Splash Mountain. But like Dre said, you can re-record. Also, I mean, Tiki Room has that same issue with stereotypical voices.
They do,
but but very stereotypical, and no one deems that problematic. And look, I'm not trying to give Disney ideas. Keep Tiki Room the way it is. I love that attraction, but that's what I'm saying. It seems like very kind of like, I don't know, a little arbitrary.
It's well, yeah, we're cherry picking. This attraction's got to be changed over, and everything has to be changed with it. But this one, maybe we'll get to that, next time or what. I don't know. It's just like you said, OG, very arbitrary kind of rules here. Theme Park Wizard, $5. Thank you so much, Wizard.
Thank you, Wizard.
Very, very much appreciate the all the support, and that goes for everybody in this chat. Thank you so much. Most of my friends didn't even know what movie The Ride was based on, and most are non-white. Yeah, exactly. It's the connections to that film are so almost tenuous now. I mean, it's not even worth speaking about.
Michael Eisner. And it was Michael Eisner. A lot of people get on, like some of the more recent Disney stuff being woke, but Michael Eisner definitely dipped his toe into removing problematic stuff in the parks. And in film, and really on Eisner's watch, that's when they basically banned Song of the South.
I think it was Frank Wells who actually gave the announcement. He's like, we're no longer gonna go and distribute Song of the South in any physical media form. I believe they do in other countries, but even that practice has stopped for some time, if I'm not mistaken. It's unfortunate. It really is, because that decision right there, I think, has caused a lot of the castigation for that film specifically. Because even our buddy Jay. Story Geeks, who is a absolute friend of the channel, definitely had to have him back on as well. But even he, when referencing Song of the South, he admitted himself that he had not seen it, but he had, seen other people's kind of reactions to it or reviews for it and whatever. And it's like, well, wait a minute, you really kind of have to see these films yourself and interpret these things through yourself, not just kind of, looking at what other people who have their own biases and so forth, interpret for themselves. But because the original film isn't available, right?
That's all we got.
Some people just, all they have is just reviews of it being horrible, and yet, nobody's even seen it. So, that has definitely caused a lot of, I think, a lot of controversy than maybe they expected even in the 1980s.
And I'm kind of at the point now where it's like, okay, well, Bob Iger is now the CEO. This attraction is 100% happening. This retheme is Walt Disney World already announced a closure. It's 100% happening. I'm at the point now where I just want to use my voice to push Disney to make a great retheme at this point. Make it the best you can make it. I hope Bob Iger goes in there and really looks at the salt mine, missing ingredient, missed mountain kind of concept, and really and really kind of readdress that. Maybe they should go at it from a different angle, And look, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. You are retheming this attraction for a segment of the community. It would be extremely offensive to retheme it and do a half-ass job. You have to come in there and really put your all in, because now you wrapped it up into people's culture. Like now, if you half-ass at Disney, it's not like you half-ass.
So true,
right? You didn't just half-ass like Mission Breakout. Now you're half-assing something that you said we're doing it for you, Black community.
And Lord knows how much they involve the New Orleans community. So I mean, they pushed that like white on rice, that every single time that they even brought this attraction up, it's based off of the people of New Orleans, the history of New Orleans. So yeah, if they do this half-ass, then all these people that they showcased for this thing, you're doing it injustice than what you were changing it in the first place.
No, 100%. And Doc Hart, our buddy Doc, says Eisner was a legend, even if he fizzled at the end. Doc, no, you're 100% right. Michael Eisner, look, they throw around the Disney legend word a lot now, right? Yeah. I think the entire cast of Grey's Anatomy have gotten a Disney Legend Award. Please, look, if anyone deserves one, it's Michael Eisner. Michael Eisner did so much to change the Walt Disney Company. It's out of control. Yeah, the last 10 years, we got like Brother Bear and Chicken Little and DCA 1.0. I get it. Those were terrible. But he did so much more than that, though. He saved the company. He really, really did. We wouldn't have a Disney right now if not for Michael Eisner. You know?
Oh, so, and even Tony Baxter.
All the respect.
Even Tony Baxter, the first half of Eisner's tenure, I mean, it was unlike any other. I mean, it really did propel Disney forward and provide them the financial capital and the means to create some of the best stuff that we've ever seen from not just the amusement entertainment community, but also the entertainment industry in general.
Yeah, no, absolute Disney legend. I love Michael Eisner. I think he did a lot of great stuff. Towards the end, you're right, Doc. He definitely did fizzle out. But
and then I'm sorry, and you also have to give it to Frank Wells, who actually spearheaded the Imagineering research and development. To allow a lot of different unique technologies to be incorporated in the parks and attractions.
Yeah,
100%. Now, It's Not Me says, any news on Hungry Bear and Critter Country? Now, no, I haven't heard any news, but I've said it many times on this show. I have OCD, so this is going to be a real problem for me because it's going to be like this weird, like when you go back there. Mm-hmm. So what, like from like half the walkway is going to be New Orleans, the other half will be Critter Country. That makes no sense to me. I don't really like that. If you're going to go New Orleans, do the whole thing New Orleans.
They should, but then you have poo, and what do you do with that? I guess Hungry Bear is the site. Yeah. Oh, well, actually, I do have a. There you go. I do have that actual sound. Yeah. Well, see. Here we go. Because we're talking about Country Bear as well here.
Yes, folks, we only have high-class stuff on this
That's a
show.
reference there. So Hungry Bear is going to be the site for the Tiana's restaurant from what we understand.
Oh, really?
I was looking into this and looks like they really want Hungry Bear to do that, which we kind of expected, right? It's right next to Splash Mountain, kind of makes sense.
That's really cool. I like that.
But then what does happen to that kind of area just beyond Hungry Bear? What happens to that kind of small kind of country village back there? What happens to what is it?
It's like just like what's beyond Big Thunder. So now it's like what's beyond poo.
What's beyond Splash Mountain is kind of the big the big to do here. We haven't heard anything on it though, so that's very, very interesting. I also saw It's Not Me. You put in a comments here. To be honest, I'm excited for Splash just because of working on animatronics, and hopefully they solve the need for frequent maintenance. So I don't think it would necessarily solve the need for frequent maintenance. However, it looks like they will be using more modern animatronics to be incorporated here, which are kind of electronically controlled, and they have their own kind of improvements. I think the big thing for me though is ever since the demand kind of came down from on high that these attractions have a certain fall protection standards. It really has done a number on some of these attractions, Indiana Jones included in that, but also Splash Mountain, because Splash Mountain used to be that maintenance technicians could get into certain places, and because it was over water, all good. There wasn't any need for some fall protection standards. Well, now that's changed, and so some of these portions of this attraction are only serviceable when the attraction goes down once a year. Hopefully, they address that, and I'm with you. It's Not Me. More than probably anything else, as part of this refurb actually goes, maybe they incorporate some fall protection standards in order to make this attraction more serviceable on a regular basis. That I am very hopeful of.
Yep. And 8-Bit Theme Park, hey, don't often catch things live here in Japan, but I'm on my lunch break at Japan.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Thank you for joining us, 8-Bit.
Man, we got viewers from Europe and now Asia in the form of Japan. That is absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us.
And that's absolutely on my bucket list. I want to visit not just Disney Sea and Tokyo Disney Resort, which I absolutely do, but I just want to go to Japan in general. I want to go to Tokyo. Japan is really fascinating to me. I love the Japanese culture, but I love the Japanese pop culture as well. It's just a very, very incredible country.
Don't be saying that, OG. Don't be saying that. I have a 10-year bucket list, so don't be ruining my.
I see what you're saying.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. George is our he's the dream maker over here on OG55.
Dream maker, man.
He's treating us to Walt Disney World very, very soon. And man, George, I mean, I'm telling you, dude. God, you get us to Tokyo Disney. I don't know what I'm gonna do, man. I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Well, I'm gonna have to give Showcase a call here so he can be maybe our guide there, because from what I understand, he knows Japanese culture very, very well, and maybe can lead us through that as well. But George, interesting,
Yes.
George, interesting, amazing. Thank you so much. Yep, theme park wizard Japan. I absolutely agree. And well, as Showcase brings up many very, very often. At least there will be one iteration of Splash Mountain that will live on, it looks like. And it looks like it's going to be the version of Splash Mountain found in Tokyo Disneyland, along with the redhead. Yeah, like you said.
Yeah. It's interesting, too, how the cultures are so different. Like over there, they don't really see the problematic elements. Out here, we do. It's just completely different. Absolutely interesting.
Yeah. 8-bit theme park Pirates is closed for a 7-month refurbishment right now. Uh-oh.
7 month.
Maybe we talked too soon.
Yeah.
Maybe there are some changes coming.
Yeah, that's pretty lengthy.
They did remove some of the Zippity-Doo-Dah and some things from the various loops in Tokyo. It's interesting, 8-bit. It's interesting. Keep us informed.
Yeah. California Dreamin' says they might change Splash of Japan, though. They seem to follow some U.S. park changes. You know what, California?
It's possible.
More now than they used to. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it's more. You're right, OG. You're right. More now than they used to. We've seen operational changes made as well. I believe didn't the CEO of the Oriental Land Company actually retire recently? And so there's a new CEO in place, and how he's been instrumental, let's say, in taking on some of the policies that maybe Bob Chapek and Josh Seymour and some of the others have implemented here, even taking them to an even further extent over there. It's very interesting. Maybe get your visits on Splash Mountain right now. That's all I'm saying. Okay, let's just go.
You never know. Now, I can guarantee you this, though. If Japan rethemes their Splash Mountain, it's going to be off the charts insane. It'll be freaking amazing, I'm sure, because they always go, as George says, balls to the wall. And I'm sure it'll be fantastic. But I don't know. I wouldn't be too shocked, though, if that decision eventually gets made. I wouldn't be too shocked.
Real quickly, I wanted to go ahead and get this out here. We might do a video on this at a later date, but really, really quickly, there was a piece by the Orlando Sentinel that actually talked about Epic Universe for a little bit. Apparently, this was at a big conference in New York, and I'm losing what that actual conference was. This is where the Jeff Shell comments actually came from. Okay, yeah, the UBS Global TMT conference on Monday. And I just wanted to bring up a couple of things real fast. One was we were actually speculating on supply chain issues and so forth connected to Epic Universe and the development and how how they're going along with this. Apparently they are on track to open by 2025, which is good to see. But some people actually interpreted some things from this article that I kind of wanted to address really, really fast here, because I know we're kind of under a little bit of a time crunch here. Epic Universe's design will also help attract conventioners with limited time, as the theme park is built so visitors can, quote, come into one land and not the whole park, Shell said. The site is just northeast of the Orange County Convention Center, and some areas of Universal-owned land attached to the theme park are directly across from Universal Boulevard. Yes, that is true. And we've been talking about this on previous shows, if you've been watching the channel regularly, about how the design of Epic Universe is very, very unique in that there's almost like a city walk built at the spine of it, in the very center of it, and how these lands can be shut off and closed from the rest of the park, while for any number of certain operational things that Universal wants to accomplish. For example, they could have convention business, or even you have some of these bookings from some of these companies, major corporate events and so forth, that can take place in one of these lands, but that's separate from the otherwise operational theme park. And the thing that I heard recently was that what they want to do is they want to have theme park guests not pay per land, as some people were speculating, but actually pay for a theme park ticket that would grant them access to the themed lands around this central spine here. But before closing time for the actual park itself, they could have like general audience members who aren't paying a theme park ticket at all take advantage of some of the restaurants and activities in terms of the central spine here, separate from the theme park, while theme park guests who paid for a ticket can get access to those lands. So that's kind of what's going on there. And you could have fireworks and late night entertainment featured part of this theme park concept as well. Play for not just theme park goers, but also the general audience. It's a very interesting plan, and I think that's what he was referring to more than anything. I don't think they're going to be pricing out per land, but could be wrong. OG?
Now, do you guys think, and I'm just throwing it out there, this whole decision is kind of from what they're saying, even is really kind of stems from this whole idea of making it easier for like convention people coming over, right?
Right.
So they're kind of crafting this entire theme park around like convention traffic and stuff like that. Does that feel a little Bob Chapek-y to you guys, or am I off base?
No,
that you're tailoring a whole theme park around like convention traffic.
I personally, because I heard all that too, and I was not happy with it. Because for me, if you kind of intertwine it, and maybe depending on how they handle it, I don't know, but I guess in the same sense that if Disney was to do that when they were overhauling Epcot, but I don't know. It's like when you kind of bring a lot of corporate sense into a theme park, just let a theme park be a theme park. And I think that was kind of part of the issue that Epcot is still going through right now, because it's when you want to try to add a convention type thing with corporate this, and, you know, sometimes it could take the appeal away of what the actual overall theme is for a park. And that's just my opinion. I don't know. Maybe they'll do it in a tasteful way, but I'm not too big of a fan of it. In a resort hotel, that's completely different. When they have it, like their conventions, like in their ballrooms or what have you, conference rooms. But in a theme park, I'm not a huge fan of it.
I don't think they're building this with convention business and most specifically corporate event business in mind. That's definitely kind of a cornerstone of this kind of whole design structure for sure. But I don't think the idea is to like building it for convention business only, or even the majority of their priorities, right? I do think it's going to be guest focused, but I think they want to come at this because it is kind of like on a little bit of an island separate from the resort proper right now, and because of that, I think they're kind of they're incorporating some aspects to take advantage of some of these ancillary sales for this theme park enterprise that isn't just limited to ticketed guests per day. Which, by the way, I mean, you're right, Orange Grove, Disney has kind of catered to that kind of corporate event space. Big time, and they've also appealed to the convention business, and that's going back to the Michael Eisner era, where you know, everybody knows about the Vacation Kingdom, obviously, as it's associated with Walt Disney World, but there was definitely a push for what they internally called the Convention Kingdom, and a lot of those decisions that were made for the boardwalk and Coronado Springs and so forth, they were made with the idea, the purpose of actually attracting that convention business in a big way. So we've seen this from the themed entertainment space before. Obviously, it's a principal design philosophy for this actual theme park, but I do think I think they're doing it in the right way. Look,
if it's discreet, and it doesn't interfere with my day-to-day activities of being immersed within these lands, then that's completely fine. But I don't want to be going in here and you're seeing a lot of business people in suits and ties walking around with briefcases and sort of thing.
I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case. Right now, some parks domestically, Disney parks, close early in order to facilitate corporate events, right? In this way, Universal doesn't have to close down the entire park. They could just close down a single land for a few hours. that I think is a way that you can incorporate some of this business that's a little bit more transparent than what we have right now.
But does that also kind of bring kind of its own set of issues though? Like, okay, I paid for this park, and now 2 of the lands are closed because of business, private parties.
That's what I was going to say. That's what I'm saying. If it's going to affect me, if I'm paying money and just say I really want to see the Universal monsters, I doubt that's where they would have a corporate event. But who really knows? But if just to say, for the sake of saying it, if that's one of the lands that is closed and I'm having my once in a lifetime vacation at Universal, would that hinder the guest experience?
Disney does this right now, though. They've done this multiple times with Star Wars Galaxy's Edge and various parts of Epcot, and in some ways they've actually gone even further by closing down entire parks before the before the regular state hours otherwise. This is kind of why they're going with the kind of tiered pricing in order to account for some of those operational changes that are made. So that way you can necessarily charge less on one day that that the park is going to be closed early than on another. I would say Universal, I think, is going about this the right way in that they're at least focusing on maybe closing down or partitioning off certain lands rather than the actual theme park itself closing. I'd rather have a theme park otherwise operational than one that's completely closed.
Now, do you think that they're going to have, in your opinion, Dre, do you think they're going to have a tiered pricing system? Like, for example, let's say I want to go to Epic Universe, right? Mm-hmm. And that day, Monsters and Nintendo are shut down for corporate events. Am I going to pay the same price for that day? Or do you think that Universal will give us a tiered pricing to sort of adjust the fact that 2 of the big lands are not available?
It's possible, but I doubt they would close an entire land off for an entire day. What's more likely to be the case is that they close it off for a partial portion of that day, maybe for 2 or 3 hours before the actual theme park closes. That kind of thing. That's how they've dealt with this in the past. But yes, I do. I mean, look, if this becomes like a super insane part of their business that they want to further sell for, right? This kind of, you sell the park multiple times per day. Then I can kind of see them doing that. But you look, Disneyland. Listen, you stay at a Disneyland hotel, you get 30 minutes of access before the park actually opens, and then you only get a portion of the theme park experience. Then everybody has to come online afterwards. We're seeing this kind of ancillary revenue than just the actual theme park admission. Look for that trend to continue. Now,
here's another question, because this is a fascinating story. We might have to do a follow-up video because there's so much with this.
Sure.
We know they're doing boarding groups for Super Nintendo World in California, in Hollywood.
Yes, they are.
Now, this design lends itself very nicely to a boarding group reservation kind of system.
Doesn't it? Doesn't it really?
So is that the future of kind of Universal Parks? Are they going to go all in with this boarding group thing sort of going forward? And this sort of hinting to that?
They tried this. I remember when Universal Studios in Hollywood opened up Wizarding World West. They tried the boarding group system. I know because I did it. I was there. And it didn't last for more than a couple of hours, to be honest with you, until they were like, okay, well, demand isn't necessarily where we thought it was, so we'll just kind of shelve this. I do think they're going to go forward with some of these boarding groups and systems, at least initially. I think Universal's a little bit less bullish on that because it's interesting. One of the philosophies inside of Universal, rather than Disney right now, is like there is value to simplicity, right? And so they're like not super bullish as Disney has been towards some of these kind of controversial guest elements, right? So they've been kind of phasing them out quicker than Disney has and so forth. But expect this kind of management of these new attractions or new lands to be part of Universal strategy going forward, very much like it is with Disney right now.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely a hint of things to come. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. I remember hearing rumors about this park and kind of doing this kind of like, each land is its own kind of park kind of concept for a long time. I mean, this has been a thing for a long time. So I don't know.
It's coming.
Yeah.
It's coming. And as Universal just showed, they're thinking outside the box with this park. I think it'll be a good guest experience. I really, really do. Universal does seem to be prioritizing that, but we'll see.
Interesting. Now I have to ask you guys another question.
Sure.
Do you think because of the distance of this and the other Universal Resort, is that going to change guest patterns, like in terms of cannibalization and what have you?
So this is interesting because I saw we were talking about that in the chat earlier.
Yeah,
and I did want to address this. George, I'm sure you have thoughts about this, but before you form your thoughts, I want to go ahead and tell you what Universal's doing to address this. One thing they're doing is they're going to have their own bus lane for buses that transport you from the resort proper to some of these hotels and where people are staying, right? And so there will be an artery created just for Universal to transport guests to and from this park specifically. Another thing too that they're doing is they're going to be building a range of themed hotels that will straddle this area of this Universal Resort complex, so that you can stay close to the actual park itself. We also know that we have a hotel in the park that will be opening before this park actually does. The center of gravity, I think, will shift towards Universal's direction with Epic Universe, right? Mm-hmm. But this is a real test, though, admittedly, and I know Disney themselves are looking at this in the form of a third gate for Disneyland and how far they can necessarily go out from Disneyland.
That's what I was getting at with this.
But George, does this change the equation for you if staying at a Universal Resort Hotel?
Honestly, I feel that normally, just speaking right now between the studios and Islands of Adventure, if I'm spending a day at Islands of Adventure, I'm there for the whole day. There's enough to do. Now, going just to the studio, for me, that's sort of kind of like a half-day park. So if I can travel back and forth, I might say, you know what, do the studios in the morning and then go over to Epic Universe, or vice versa, have most of the day over at Epic Universe, finish the day off at the studios. I think in that aspect, I can see it, but I do feel like there could be those guests that when it comes to just the traveling part, because with Universal, you kind of have that contingency of saying, okay, the parks are right next to each other, sort of like Disneyland and DCA. You're so used to just walking right across the street to go to the park. Now, when you are used to doing Walt Disney World, you're used to traveling through transportation, whether it's the bus line, monorail, Skyliner, what have you. So when you have your Universal guests that are so used to being able to just walk, but then you're going to have a little bit of a route where you have to wait for a bus, not knowing how long it's going to take, it may alter a person's perspective of saying, you know what, we're already here at Epic Universe. Let's just stay for the whole day.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see the guests, the crowd flow, and how, you know, a big theme park says here, I'm wondering what they'll do to avoid cannibalizing the guests at USF and IOA. Yeah, that's an interesting thing, and that's the other conversation too. 8-bit is like, okay, who does it cannibalize? Because it might not cannibalize Universal at all. It might take a visit away from Disney. You know, we don't know. And I've said that many times. A lot of people on like social media, they're like on Twitter and stuff, they're saying, oh, well, Disney is going to lose out on a day. Not necessarily. It might be Universal. We don't know, but it could be Disney. But it's going to be interesting to see how that whole thing kind of pans out. I'm very, very curious.
Could be like DCA where it doesn't cannibalize anybody, but likely not. But transportation, big deal. I think Disney just recently put out a survey intimating how much the guests values transportation options available at Walt Disney World and where they actually end up staying. For example, you know, one of the reasons why we're staying at the Pop Century is to have access to the Skyliner, and Disney has for years charged buku bucks for the 3 monorail line resort hotels available around Seven Seas Lagoon. So transportation options and the ease of transportation, that is something that is marketable. It's not just something that is demanded by guests. It's a cornerstone of Disney and Universal's to some extent business. The ease of transportation option. I think if they solve the transportation issue between this park and the kind of like the bulk of Universal's resort offerings, I think they will have accomplished a lot. But I can tell you right now, Disney's looking at it. They're like, is this viable? Not just for Florida, maybe Anaheim.
Yeah. And DCA, see the thing too, like you mentioned DCA, that's interesting because see, that's only 2 parks though. Walt Disney World and
that's
Universal.
What I was just going to say. What
yeah.
I was just going to say. I think it would. Disneyland would kind of be more susceptible of doing that with a third park because that way it can extend to what the resort already has. Walt Disney World, I really feel like doesn't need to expand upon that. Like if with a 5th gate, I mean, because they already have 4 parks that you have to travel back and forth to, that if you have a park hopper, that's going to take part of your day just to travel back and forth. And they need to actually utilize the 4 parks that they already have, because Lord knows Animal Kingdom needs it bad.
Rogue attraction, that's exactly right.
Yeah, he says, Rogue says, depends. I think there's a reason why Disney is timid on a 5th gate. Vacation days are unlimited. I think 5 gates would cannibalize. Yeah, that's why I think the DCA thing, there's not a whole lot there. It's not going to cannibalize, but in Florida, there's a ton. I mean, there's only so much time people can go on vacation. I mean, maybe Florida has to sort of alter its approach and maybe become a little bit more of a locals spot.
To be fair, I meant DCA 1.0 as kind of a dig at the value proposition there and how nobody actually went to DCA over anything else. But look, I think Rogue Attraction is exactly 100% correct. Yeah, I mean it's that's kind of why Disney hasn't been really looking to do a 5th gate. Honestly, post Michael Eisner. Bob Iger, 15 years, maybe now 17 years as the CEO. How many parks did we get? 1, right? It was all about expanding the parks they already have, the footprint they already have, because it's a lot to build a new park, even if you own the land, And I think that's the smarter move, not only just because of the holiday or time for Americans, right? So many people only get so much time off, but also because, like you said, George, Animal Kingdom needs investment badly. Disney Hollywood Studios needs investment badly. Worry about the 5th gate when you finish the work on the last 2.
Well, yeah, and Disney's in a different position than Universal, and that's why a lot of people on Diz Twitter, they get into this thing. Well, Universal's building a new park, because Universal has to build another park. They're trying to get market share. Disney. In Florida is a very mature market. They have 4 parks, 2 water parks, countless resorts. I mean, it would be shooting themselves in the foot to build another park. Universal, though, it's beneficial to them. It's like Disneyland Resort building a 3rd park. Like, it's beneficial. There's growth potential there. Florida doesn't have that same potential. Disney World doesn't have that same potential. So it's definitely a different kind of. Each company has a different need. It really does,
Yeah, and Jeff Shell was pretty bullish today on those comments as well, saying that there is absolute demand to necessitate a third theme park for them, and domestic theme park performance continues to be strong, both in terms of our daily attendance, also in terms of our forward booking and hotel occupancy. Yeah, I mean they're definitely seeing it, and I don't think Disney would quite see the returns in the same way as Universal does, going from 2 to 3 versus 4 to 5. I will say, though, Disney, they could expand those parks a little bit more aggressively than they have been. There's something there, but yeah, I mean, OG, you're largely correct. They're in the market share game right now, and it's beneficial to all of us theme park fans as a result.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it's a different approach for sure. And let me see. Hold on, we got some comments here. I see a lot of dinos. Showcase Epcot needs dinos. I agree. Showcase. I'm telling you, if Vash and I and George were running the Walt Disney Company, the dinos at Epcot would be the first thing we did.
First order of
business.
First thing
we did.
Absolutely.
Rogue says people stay at Disney and go to Universal. Animal Kingdom will hurt Epic Universe. Well, there's something to be said about that, Rogue. And I kind of use Disneyland Resort as an analogy, right? people go to Disneyland and they tack on a DCA day, right? Kind of same thing with Orlando. They go to Walt Disney World and then they tack on Universal days.
They do.
So it'll be kind of interesting to see how that whole thing pans out with Epic Universe now, the distance, who's going to cannibalize.
But center of gravity, I always talk
about. But with
about
him saying that Animal Kingdom will hurt from Epic Universe, that's where I think Disney will be doing the calling for that potential Moana / Zootopia to take over Dino Land.
Oh, he said, well, okay. I'm sorry, Rogue. I misread your comment. You said Animal Kingdom will hurt from Epic Universe. Okay. So Animal Kingdom's going to take the hit is what he's saying.
It might. And
Okay,
that's partially why. It's partially why, I talked about the cycle, George, right? The cycle of investment when it comes to Walt Disney World, right? It's Disney's Hollywood Studios. Animal Kingdom, Disney Hollywood Studios, Epcot, and then you go back. I think that's one of the reasons why they want to go back to Animal Kingdom so badly is because I think everybody recognizes that the park with the necessitating the amount of necessitating the investment the most right now is Animal Kingdom.
And Rogue continues saying DVC is something that Universal needs to think about to nurture a stronger fan base.
Yeah. That's interesting. DVC, like it's a ingenious business because you're basically front loading all of these resort visits in like one bite right there, and you're committing Disney fans to get the most value out of their DVC purchase as possible, right? So you're if they're constantly having to go back and wanting to go back and so forth, and you front load all these repeat visits. It is a fascinating business model that has grown. I think you're right, Rogue. Maybe with these new hotels that they will build along with Epic Universe, and I do believe there's at least 3. Maybe you dedicate some of those towers to a DVC type structure.
Absolutely. And then Kyle Kachi, I hope I pronounced your name right, Kyle Kachi, I believe. I do apologize if I mispronounced your last name, sir. Build a new land in every park. That's the same investment as a new park. That's true, but I would even argue Disney's and I know a lot of people kind of give Disney a lot of shit, like, oh, why aren't they spending more money? I mean, and that's fair. I want more, definitely too. But if you do Tron, Guardians, all the stuff going on at Epcot, even just a couple years ago from Galaxy's Edge, Disney has poured a lot into Orlando. I mean, and I bet you if you took like the last maybe 5 years of investment in Walt Disney World, it probably would be pretty close, maybe even a little bit more than what Universal's spending over at Epic Universe. It's a sizable investment, but it's not all in one, so it's not as sexy though. See, the Epic Universe is sexier. It's all one package. It's one resort. Oh, okay, cool. This is spread out a little bit, but they've poured quite a bit of money in there. I don't know. Just my opinion.
OG, do I have to go over my the 18 months worth of investment that happened at Walt Disney World when Michael Eisner was running the show, or do you want me to not?
Oh well, yeah, no, that's a much bigger, but again, that was also a market share thing. They were in a different position back then. It wasn't Michael Eisner expanding Walt Disney World. That was basically Universal now.
Yeah, and that was also a mandate from the angel investors that actually saved Disney for sure. But it always surprises me how rapid that expansion actually went. I mean, like within the span of a couple of months, they opened a water park, an entire new theme park, and dozens of resort hotels, Pleasure Island. It was wild. Like within the span of months, crazy levels of investment.
6 years for Tron. God forbid.
6 years for Tron. Yeah, that's the other thing.
I think Disneyland knocked out Runaway Railway from scratch, by the way. It wasn't in an existing building. We built it from the ground up. Mm-hmm. It started after Tron and is opening before Tron, which is hilarious.
And relocated a lot of facilities offsite as well.
Exactly. It's insane. Theme Park Wizard over here opening up a whole can of worms. Man, I love you, Wizard. This is a whole conversation right here. Whole video.
I just wanted to spend like 10 minutes on this topic.
Oh my God. Right here. He goes, and I think there's no indication that anything else is going to happen than Disney writing us a big check. I'll wait for the hype train to pass by. Writing us a big check for the asset in 24. NBC CEO Jeff Shell. Now, Jeff,
that's
Now, your parent company, Comcast, just had to write off $8 billion for your big Sky purchase. So you could definitely use that big check right about now, right?
Yeah, you could. Yeah, you could. Man, that was a big purchase. Ooh, we don't talk about that, but yikes.
That was a big one. No, but in all seriousness, the Hulu thing is a fascinating conversation because
big deal.
Honestly, if I was Disney, I would sell the whole thing to Comcast and license out my content to Comcast and have Hulu be a much bigger moneymaker in that regard. Let them have the whole thing. Comcast needs a streaming service. Peacock is pathetic. If they had Hulu, Disney could license their stuff out. Disney makes more money, I think, probably in the long run that way. And Universal gets their big streamer. I think it's a win for both sides. But what do you think, Dre? I know you got opinions on this one. I
do. Look, Hulu has that ARPU. That's what makes it so that the average revenue per user is insane. It's the envy of the streaming world. Would Disney let that go? No. But I am sympathetic, though. I will say I am sympathetic to your Apple Plus. I'm sorry, your Disney Plus selling off to Apple or some other studio, right? Have some other entity control this, or control and manage this kind of DTC outlet here, and have Disney reap the benefits of it through licensing deals and whatever. It's so funny. It's like that's what they have with Netflix, but that's for another discussion. You have to be able to turn this around, though. I mean, this really, and we don't really talk about this a whole lot, but this was really what kind of was one of the big reasons why Chapek is no longer in that big seat in the Mouse House in Burbank, right? It's you cannot continue to absorb these losses without making some type of revenue at some point, right? And I think this ad tier will help, but Bob Iger, one of his big tasks is having to turn this around. Watch for big moves. I wouldn't be surprised, OG, if Iger kind of looks at this Hulu thing going, do we need this? Can we work something out? It's very interesting.
Well, and Bob Iger said he's happy with the assets they have, but he said nothing is forever. And no one picks up on that.
Yeah.
Nothing is forever.
And he referred to them as assets, too. If you get that quote as well, I mean, he refers it to as like, hey, we have things that people want, and maybe an indication of where we go forward here.
Yeah. What do you think, George?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people kind of misinterpret certain things that Iger says because they only focus on what they want to hear. And sometimes they get that off of him, but then exactly. So then when they mix something that he would say, and it's like, okay, well, why was this done? Well, you didn't really fully listen to what he was saying. You were only hearing certain snippets of what he was saying, but get the bigger picture.
Yeah, no, 100%. Well, people, there's absolutely, and Dre and I have talked about this a lot on the phone. Like there is this, it's a personality contest for a lot of fans with these executives. Nice. They love Daddy Josh. They love Daddy Iger.
We heard the cheers at the top of the show when they were walking through like kings, It was like, come on, guys. There's definitely that cult of personality. There's that, I don't know. There's that, that kind of worship almost is kind of, for lack of a better term, right? It is kind of fascinating how these executives have turned into like, minor celebrities. It is wild. And so when I think Braden made a great tweet to your point, George. Chapek could say the same thing that Iger does, and it's perceived in an entirely different way. And it's the media hates it, the media loves it, whatever. It's all about kind of who says it and how they say it. That's why when people were talking about they were reviewing the town square, I'm sorry, the town hall that Iger had. Oh, he's so statesman-like. Oh, he's got that pizzazz. He's got that thing that, he says it in the right way that Chapek could never. And it's like, yeah, but he's saying the same thing. Substantively, it's the same thing. It's just fascinating how that energy that some of these people convey works.
Oh no, it's 100%. It's 100%. Like, and we've said it before. Like, like Daddy Josh could basically be advocating for the same thing that Chapek was advocating for, but because Josh had, played the part, he's charismatic, he gets a pass for it, right? And look, I think there is I think there's definitely a place for style. I think there's definitely a place for charisma. I do think, like, in terms of rallying the troops, I think Bob Iger has been fantastic because I think that the morale at Disney needed a boost. It really did. Chapek was a demoralizing figure within the company and even with fans. So I think on that end, he's already helped greatly.
I think so.
But I think if fans are in this thinking like Iger's going to make massive changes, massive departures, massive U-turns from what Chapek was planning, I think you're going to be disappointed, though. I think that, look, Iger is a smart guy. He's not just going to throw everything out just because Chapek said yes to it. He's not. There's going to be things that he does throw out for sure, but not everything. Not everything.
And in what you said, OG, Bob Iger is in the most enviable position possible because you've had this kind of, let's say, outsider, this kind of more business-minded person make all of these changes to streamline your business. And now he could just look at that and go, how is this perceived? How did this work out? And make those changes without having to go and receive the castigation from some of these groups that would have problems with these originally. It's interesting. I'm hearing internally that some people are not like they're obviously they like Iger more than Chapek, no question, but they're not super enthused. Reference to another channel there about Iger coming back in here and some of the decisions he's made already. Now, apparently, what I'm hearing is that Iger. This is why, George, you talked about earlier how a lot of these things are actually moving. One of the reasons why is because Bob Iger has systematically, from what I understand, has gone through every single division and has heard the grievances of the Chapek era, and is already making moves with each of those divisions as those grievances are aired. But some people are not super enthusiastic about Bob Iger and how he's been handling things very, very recently in terms of keeping some of those Chapek era things in there. They thought that he was going to come in and remove all of that stuff, and that's not necessarily turning out to be the case.
Well, and here's the thing, and then we're going on 2.5, so we're gonna have to close it out real soon. But this is kind of the same kind of problem that I saw like Elon Musk having with Twitter, right? There was like this kind of like energy around Elon coming in and taking over Twitter that he was gonna just every problem you ever had with the platform was gonna be solved because Musk is now in charge,
right? And
the expectations, I was seeing these expectations on Twitter,
high.
Through the roof, unrealistic,
and
it's the same kind of thing with Bob Iger, right? These guys come into these companies and it's like, they're going to just, every problem we ever had is going to be solved and all the ills of the world will magically melt away. Not going to happen. There's real world issues and logistics around running these companies. And it's just not that easy. It's not that easy.
It's not. And this is a very competitive space. And like Rogue Attraction brings out right there, that for the Disney's financial situation is very, very, very different than when Iger was running the Mouse House back in the late aughts, early teens, right? Versus now, it's a completely different entertainment landscape and market than it was back then, and the talent is very, very different as well.
And honestly, I would love to see an Imagineering Story season 2 to kind of cap all this off, because to really go behind the scenes and pull back the curtain to really show the internal structure of how much of a hit that the company has gone through and how it affects the funding, the financials. And I think a lot of people they don't really focus on that. So Disney Plus, Leslie Iwerks, Imagineering Story season 2.
There was talk that Leslie was still filming for a little bit there. Yeah.
Keep going, girl. Keep going. Yeah. I want season 2. I want season 2. Come on.
Right? I don't know where those talks are right now, but we definitely want season 2, because that is this has been a very interesting time for sure.
Oh no, it's been wild. It's been absolutely wild, and it's gonna be interesting to see, where they go with it. We're gonna close it out. We're at 2.5 hours. A lot of great comments coming in. It's hard to shut down shop right now, but we have to. We're going for too long. But before we do though, I want to say a couple things. Number one, huge shout out to Theme Park Casual. He's a moderator on the channel, a friend of the channel. He's family to OG55. We love you, Casual.
I don't know. Fly Casual.
Exactly. Fly Casual, right?
Oh, well, I did it again. Oh, wait.
I don't know. Fly Casual.
There we go.
There you go.
Casual. little, and then yeah, just a little tribute to him. But we love Casual, and he's out there every day, every video, you know, moderating and sharing our content and watching our content. And we just want to give a big thank you to Casual.
Absolutely. Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, so close to 200 subs on YouTube. Yeah, go ahead and find his channel on YouTube. He is on there. He produces content. He's been live streaming a lot lately.
Yeah.
So definitely go ahead, check him out, give him a subscribe. Very much appreciated from the OG family to his.
Yes, Casual. If you want, go ahead and drop your channel in the comments.
Please do.
So everybody head over there and check him out.
And I have to say, kind of adding on to that, I actually was able to meet up with Casual in person out at Disneyland. We got to have dinner at Trader Sam's, and I just have to say he is a pure, true hearted person that whatever you get online, whatever you get on Twitter, whatever you get on his videos, it is completely legit, and even more when you actually get to meet him in person. And he's a really cool guy to actually hang around.
Casual, we got plans to go to Knott's Berry Farm this summer. The whole OG55 crew. Love to see you there. We'll talk dates and times.
Let's do it. Let's do it, Casual. Yeah, I was gonna do a Knott's trip with Casual about a month ago, I believe, but I don't know if everyone in the chat knows I actually tore my hip labrum, so I've been going to physical therapy. And even when I go to the parks now, I don't go on any rides. I just walk around and eat, so I can't really ride anything. So I don't want to. My first time back at Knott's after like 30 years, not ride anything. So Casual, once I get back to tip top shape again, definitely want to take you up on that Knott's offer. Maybe this summer with the whole crew, we can do that like Dre was saying or something. But I really want to get down there. The Knott's thing is really fascinating to me. I haven't been in a long time. The last time I was at Knott's, the soapbox racers were still working.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh,
I mean, that's how long we're talking.
That is a long time there. That's when Eddie Soto was still working at Knott's Berry Farm. That's how long that was right there. Wow, that's a lot. Yeah, California Dreamin', you know, having the distinct honor and privilege of having dinner with these folks that you see before you a couple of times now. It is the best dinner you can have. So I am as envious as you are, actually.
Yeah, in California, like, you know, if I don't know, are you in? Well, you're probably in California, I assume, based on your name. Hey, I mean, maybe more at the parks.
I will actually say this because it was Michael Meets Mouse that mentioned a couple hours ago. He asked like, when is the trip? So I have to just throw that out there. It is going to be late July. We're going to do Knott's Berry Farm, Universal, Disneyland. I'm taking these fellas to Walt Disney World for the first time. So if ever you see us in the parks, if you're ever around at the time, hit us up on social media. We love to meet you guys in person. Yeah. You know, get some selfies, hang out a bit, you know, all that good stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Be a good time. It'd be a great time. We're going to close it out, but it wouldn't be an OG55 live. Hopefully our buddy Showcase is still in the chat.
Oh, he did. He mentioned it. He brought it up.
He brought it up?
Yeah, he brought it up.
Oh, so. It's happening. It's happening. It's happening. We cannot close out the show without, well, you know, a little Carl's Jr. love. So everybody, before we go, oh, actually, you know what? Before we do that, I'm jumping the gun. Vash, if you can let everybody know where they can find you on social media.
Hey, best place to find me is going to be at Vash Guy on Twitter. It's right down there. Type that in for all the robust discussion, as Christine Waysons McCarthy would say. And if you want to go ahead and see me, what's going to be the channel you're watching right now at Orange Grove 55, where we have all kinds of shows, including the one you're watching right now, Orange Nerd, Citrus Corner, and my show, of course, Freshly Squeezed, your source for juice, news, and info, squeezed fresh, right from the actual Grove.
Perfect. And follow this man on Twitter. There he is, Vash Sky.
Thank you. Do appreciate it.
And down below, Mr. Family Man 23.
You can find me on my YouTube channel, Disney Family Man 23. You can interact with me on Twitter at Disney George. You can check me out with the new podcast, A Walk with Walt, on Apple, iTunes, and Stitcher. And of course, you can find me here on Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info. And one more little plug-in, again, for my wife, who makes custom-made blankets with her new, and this is her frozen one that was handmade. That's going to be for our niece's Christmas gift. But she does all sorts of different styles, stitchings, everything. So definitely check her out with her business. Quilts from my heart. I had to double check because I didn't want to get a copyright issue with that. But yeah, definitely follow her on Facebook, Jessica Falcione. DM her if you want any type of quilt, anything really with fabric material she could do for you.
Perfect. And
Fantastic.
last but not least, we're going to close it out with the world famous. Go ahead.
Sorry, one last thing, and one more time before we close this out. That a big happy birthday for Walt Disney, because this conversation wouldn't have even been possible without him. So we have to close that out. And OG, let's see that big juicy burger, shall we?
And the hard facts.
There you go. The hard facts. And speaking of big juicy burgers.
And there's the biggest bargain of all.
Nice.
Have a great night, everybody. Take care.
Cool.